Welcome to week 3 and welcome to Stats versus Film, where we watch every single game, review all the tape, and compare that to all the stats, all the spreadsheets, and yes, all the underlying metrics in the hopes of helping you win your matchup this weekend. Hayden, how you feeling? Any opening thoughts as the sky is falling in fantasy football land at this moment?
Yeah, a sample size of 1 is noise. A sample size of 2 starts establishing a trend here. So we're kind of working small samples. So we're not like making sure everything in the first 2 weeks is going to be predictive of the future, but there's at least a little bit of caution that we can at least make for the next couple weeks here as we try to collect more data.
The season is 17 games long. I want to keep that in mind. And I'll actually, a state of the union here a little bit. Call attention back to maybe some scores that were after week 2 of the 2024 season when Bijan Robinson was the running back 16, Derrick Henry, the running back 17, Jonathan Taylor, running back 20, Josh Jacobs, running back 22, and even, the likes of Chuba Hubbard, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, running back 41 to running back 52. And that's not even talking about the wide receivers where like Drake London was wide receiver 38, Cortland Sutton was wide receiver 66, Terry McLaurin was wide receiver 70. So many things can happen in these first 2 weeks. It can be, matchup dependent, opponent dependent, how good your quarterback is playing, what is going to change here for coaching here on out. And our goal is to put that in perspective with every single team that we are about to cover. However, Hayden, we also have 5 possible quarterback injuries and then 2 backup quarterbacks playing each other here in week 3 as well.
Yep. If your quarterback is limping around, we have the waiver wire show, and then we're going to break down all of that even more on this episode.
Plus a trade show on Thursday. I'm sure many of you are sending trades in your leagues as well. You can get those questions in the Discord link in the description down below. Before we get started, I want to add that we are having, let's say, some platform issues on the back end here. So a thumbs up, a subscribe, and a share with any of your friends in your group texts have never been bigger for us than at this moment. So thank you all for doing that. Okay, we'll start with the top 10 teams and we'll kick things off with one of those injured quarterbacks. This is the Cincinnati Bengals. That is Joe Burrow once again on injured reserve. Hayden, simple question. What happens now to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown?
So they're still going to be pretty pass first because they can't run the ball. The offensive line's no good. Chase Brown's been the least efficient running back per my model. It's like not necessarily his fault, but there's some flaws to his game as well. And at least with Browning, we have like a decent enough sample size where he can like keep the thing moving and he can actually run the offense, I think, fairly well. Jamar Chase, for example, his yards per route run in his like targets per route, not all that different than what it is with Joe Burrow. The big difference, though, is just the projected touchdowns are going to go down. The amount of snaps that you're going to get, like there's always some crazy games with Joe Burrow. You're less likely to get that. So I think Jamar Chase, where he's targeted, it's so easy to get him the ball that he's a little bit safer than T. Higgins and with Chase Brown, but even T. Higgins without Joe Burrow, it's at 1.8 yards per route run, 15% target share. So I think stock down on everybody, but these guys were so good in fantasy and Jake Browning's at least been good enough where I do think that even this week I will be calling them starts, just moving them down in my rankings.
The schedule is not kind coming up. It's the Vikings and the Broncos defenses, then the Lions and the Packers over the next 4 weeks. For the most difficult matchups you can have if you are a backup quarterback here. Let's not forget that Jake Browning, I'll say it, maybe got Brian Callahan his coaching job with the Tennessee Titans and how they played together. They did change that offense quite a bit. It was like even more quarterback movement and short manufactured things. I went back and looked at Jamar Chase's scoring in those 2023 games when Jake Browning started from week 12 to week 17, just for fantasy football standpoint. He was the wide receiver 31 in points per game with 10.9 half point PPR. 1 game of wide receiver 6, but then the rest outside of wide receiver 30. T. Higgins in that stretch was wide receiver 25 with 2 games of wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 9. So you still had top 10 scoring weeks with both of them. They also each missed a contest during that stretch too, but then just some really average weeks of around wide receiver 30, wide receiver 40, heck, even a wide receiver 50. And the one note I did want to bring up was that Joe Mixon was the running back 10 in points per game during that stretch. Now that can just be for short yardage touchdowns. That can be more, methodically going down the field instead of these big touchdown passes to Jamar Chase and to T. Higgins on top of it. But with a Chase Brown slow start, maybe that gets a bit better. But at the same time, we're talking about a different offensive line here too.
Yeah, pretty bad offensive line. Chase Brown, all the at 31% targets without Joe Burrow on the field too. So that could kind of play into this where they're not going to push the ball downfield and they're just going to like check it down or throw a lot more screens to Chase Brown to get him out there and moving. So yeah, it's definitely a stock down. I will not have Jamar Chase as like a top 2 or top 3 wide receiver right now. He's definitely in that mix, like next to, your Drake Londons, your Brian Thomas Jr. in a bounce back spot, like those type of guys, I think where I'm going to be having him ranked. And then T. Higgins going to go into the Calvin Ridley tier and kind of just work my way from there.
And in the waiver show that you did with Jacob, you basically suggested that if you had Joe Burrow or any of these quarterbacks, the best pickup would be Daniel Jones at this point.
Yeah, I like Daniel Jones. I think that Browning would be my second favorite quarterback. I forgot to mention on the show. And then it's like Russ, Mac Jones are more short-term options, but at least Browning's going to get a pretty long runway here, most likely for the entire season.
Next, Minnesota Vikings. JJ McCarthy finished his week 2 contest where he played terribly and then popped up on, let's call it Monday morning, with a high ankle sprain. He can be out from anywhere between 1 to 4 games. I thought Adam Schefter, Hayden, had really good schedule analysis where he pointed out that JJ McCarthy is not going to play in week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. But then after that, the Vikings go to Dublin and then back-to-back in London and then have their bye week after that. So most likely we will not see JJ McCarthy for at least 3 weeks of action, but it might be the 3rd game after the bye week.
And the theory is he can't go on an airplane. Like I'm kind of lost here. Like what exactly is this? Or because he feels like there's like a bunch of excuses with the Vikings like at all time with him. It's very odd to me. Like I'm still like skeptical how banged up he is. He obviously has an ankle sprain to some degree. It's just rare, like you see with the Commanders and Gene Daniels, who has a knee sprain right now. They're giving as much time as possible, and when you have a dude at quarterback, you do that. And JJ McCarthy has been the worst quarterback in the NFL through the first 2 weeks. So like I get it. They want to calm him down, wait for Addison to get back, wait for Darisaw to get back. Their center is in the concussion protocol. So like I think they want to calm him down, but I don't know, man. This one feels a little bit odd to me. They just like treat him differently than most starting NFL quarterbacks get treated. Like Schefter even said, like he's got a newborn at home. Like what if he like doesn't even travel? You're like, really? Like do you ever hear that about any other quarterback? Like at some point, like they're just making some decisions potentially because he's not playing well.
I hear you a bit. Let me give a different perspective on this because, and I know you just said this, he is injured, right? To me, it doesn't matter that he finished the game or if he didn't finish the game. Like, we have all played sports on some level, and sprains and injuries hurt way more the next day when, you don't have the adrenaline pumping through your veins, when things swell up, all the sort. It is quite different in the reporting that immediately they do say, hey, this is a high ankle sprain and it is this period versus, the running joke for a lot of these teams it is the lowest high ankle sprain or the highest low ankle sprain ever.
Yeah.
It is an interesting schedule though, coming up versus everyone else where we know he's not playing this week and then they're in Europe for 2 days and then they come back with their bye week. So we do see teams at times with other players go out there and basically schedule these things when there are breathers, when there are times for it to all align up. And that is playing a part here. At the same time, like he did have his ankle checked immediately after this play. And yes, he did finish, but to me, it is a legitimate injury.
There's just severities to it. And some quarterbacks would go out there and play through it. And, when they're playing well, they want to make sure that happens. It's convenient. It could easily be like the craziest ankle sprain I've ever seen. He was also running around,
Yeah. And the other part of that too, is we have seen, quarterbacks play through major knee injuries like
torn
Phillip
ACLs
Rivers and stuff. Yeah. Yes. So, on top of this, as you mentioned, the Vikings currently have the worst EPA per play in the NFL at this moment. This is not what we were used to with the Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell days, the Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell days. We both think KOC is a very good player. Sure, they are, missing Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. They are missing Jordan Addison, but it simply can't be this bad. And it has been that bad so far. And also, JJ McCarthy has played 4 NFL games, 2 preseason, 2 regular season. And he has gone down with a torn meniscus and now a high ankle sprain on top of it in just less than 4 games of action.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be moving Justin Jefferson up my rankings with Carson Wentz in there versus with JJ McCarthy. I think there's more downfield opportunities there. I think maybe perhaps a little bit more accurate. I mean, right now the Vikings are dead last in plays in the NFL right now. So they're more balanced on offense. They have not been able to like move the ball consistently. The other big thing here is TJ Hawkinson's the tight end 36. Like this was the weeks without Jordan Addison's. Like what do we do with TJ Hawkinson if this is a more balanced offense that's not nearly as good? That hurts him. And then with Aaron Jones out this week and likely more than that with a soft tissue injury, he's an older guy.
Right.
What do we do with Jordan Mason? Because right now the Vikings haven't been running that many plays, but if he's going to inherit a lot of the production that they've been combining for, he's like a top 15 guy. It just, are they going to give him passing situations? Is there another guy, Ty Chandler? There's a preseason guy that was catching some passes too. Like how is it Jordan Mason bell cow, or is it Jordan Mason in an elevated role here? He's been so good that I think it's going to be closer to like the bell cow usage. I mean, they traded and paid for him. So I'm pretty optimistic about Jordan Mason.
Since we love preseason action, I remember you mentioning that the running back 3 or 4 on the Vikings was like one of your favorite watches.
I forgot his name already.
And he plays Xavier Scott, maybe?
Yes,
is that his name?
Yes.
There it is. Yeah, Jordan Mason now graduates from your flex spot, who was touchdown dependent, into your running back 2 spot. You know, it is that immediate. And, you know, if you waited on running backs, he could potentially even be your running back 1. He is so good after contact already, up there in terms of the underlying metrics among all running backs. Let's not forget that, again, we talked about the superstars to open last season, and then also the ones who were performing below average and not up to their expectation. Jordan Mason was only behind basically like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry in terms of rushing yards to open last season. So Jordan Mason can tote the rock, man. He is one of the best pure ball carriers in the NFL. He can't really do that much else, but one of the pure ball carriers in the league.
Yep, just got to score more points for Minnesota and run more plays.
And we get the Josh McCown, Carson Wentz dynamic all over again, like we did in Philadelphia. So we'll see what magic my guy Josh can bring out of Carson Wentz. Next, let's go to the Monday night football games. There are 2 of them to my demise. Let's first start with the better game of the 2 and kick things off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are also dealing with a whole bunch of injuries. They're down Tristan Wirfs. We knew that heading into the season. Then they lost Luke Gadecki in this game, their right tackle that they just gave an extension to. They also lost Kalijah Kancey, who arguably is their best interior pass rusher with a torn pectoral. But we say this every week. No one plays the quarterback position quite like Baker Mayfield. It's an absolute electric roller coaster. He can throw interceptions that are dropped by corners. He can fumble passes, but it doesn't matter because he still wills his team into the end zone, into the red zone, and into victories. Just such a fun team to watch on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it really is. I've noticed that they're a little bit more balanced this year. Like you can see Tampa Bay 45% neutral pass rate. I do think that the Tristan Wirfs, and now with the right tackle also banged up, that's playing into it. Obviously, Bucky Irving has been a total stud. So with Bucky, and unfortunate that he lost the goal line touchdown to Rachaad White, but there's really not a whole lot has changed. He's the RB14 in expected points, and we know he's an efficient player. I think the more interesting conversation is with Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka. Obviously, Emeka has just been like completely outscoring Mike Evans right now, but interesting enough, Mike Evans is a wide receiver 14 in usage, where Emeka is wide receiver 30. Their just production has flipped. So we're going to see that even out. It's impossible for Emeka to have a 23% touchdown rate over the course of the season. But at the same time, those are a couple ridiculous plays he's been making. Like we've seen end arounds, the screen touchdown, the post touchdowns from a week ago. So he's like kind of doing it at every single level too, which is super, super encouraging. And I think that with Mike Evans, there'll be bounce back spots. There's another tough matchup for him. So I would say like generally like kind of buy low on Mike Evans, but I wouldn't pay like that top 15 wide receiver price tag that you're probably paying like a couple weeks ago. But I do think that he's going to be like a wide receiver 2-3 this season.
One guy has 3 touchdowns. It's really that simple. Now, I'm also getting questions at this moment of, hey, is this the best we're going to get of Emeka Egbuka? What happens when Chris Godwin returns? To me, those questions are a bit delusional. I want the guy that's playing in 3 wide receiver sets and even 2 wide receiver sets at this time. And who knows what Chris Godwin's going to bring to this lineup once he comes back. Like you're seeing Sterling Shepard pop up there. Sterling Shepard's not going to keep Emeka Egbuka off the field. So I want to ride the Emeka Egbuka train all off season, like we did, and then all regular season. And if Chris Godwin just like totally steals the top or second wide receiver spot in this team, so be it. But I don't want to predetermine that with a fearful trade of that happening because Emeka is just playing at a really high level right now.
Yeah, I'd view him as a top 24 wide receiver the rest of the season. He's currently the wide receiver 10 on the unsustainable stuff, but he's a good player. And I think that the Bucs offense, which has not been like fantastic through 2 weeks, is going to get better once they get their offensive linemen back too. So there should be more scoring opportunities in the future for Evans, Emeka, Otten, Rashad White, Bucky, everybody.
One final point on that offensive line. Next Gen Stats tweeted this out. Baker Mayfield's average time to throw changed dramatically after right tackle Luke Gadecki left the game late in the first quarter against the Texans. He averaged 3.31 seconds to throw with Gadecki compared to 2.23 seconds without him. So that is something of note, and maybe less downfield and scrambling concepts and more, manufactured stuff in the short to intermediate game. Okay, their opponents in this game, the 0-2 Houston Texans at this point. There's a number of things to talk about here. First, let's lead with the passing game, because I am still waiting for CJ Stroud to begin his 2025 season.
Unfortunately, you look at the unblocked pressures and there they are, like right at the top. So their guys are just getting beat one-on-one, but also they're just having very similar mistakes up front as they did last season. And like, to be fair, you had like a new center, you're switching out your tackles. It's a total mess. They're like still like hosting tryouts up front, but the offensive line is definitely hurting. They're running the ball okay. Like Nick Chubb's actually doing pretty solid right now, and they've got the explosive to Woody Marks too out of the backfield. Nico Collins will run hotter than he's done so far. Like last week, he was expected to score 19 fantasy points. He got a bunch of end zone targets, came down with the 1, but there was a couple other plays that he was unable to come down with. He's still the wide receiver 19 in expected points. That's not what he signed up for. He's produced way, way, way lower than that. So am I like nervous that he can be like the top 5 guy that I was thinking about? I am nervous at that point, but is he still going to be a fantasy wide receiver 1 like from this point forward? I do think that he's just like too good. And I think CJ Stroud's too good. And hopefully as the season progresses, the offensive line doesn't like completely figure it out, but it can be better than what it's been in weeks 1 and 2, hopefully.
I really like CJ Stroud. I do think he deserves some of this blame, though. His placement is just not the same as it was during his rookie season right now. Like that used to be his superpower, putting on people's face masks, front shoulder, back shoulder, all this type of stuff. And he's just airmailing passes he previously wouldn't. And I'm not sure if it, again, is carryover from the offensive line stuff and still not trusting it. Again, we always talk about environment. The environment is still not to the caliber that it was during his rookie season. But again, I do think he deserves some blame here. Like the missed 3rd and goal to the back pylon on Nico Collins, then that sprint left with, which everyone hates that call now. It's the same thing as a goal line fade. Just the ball wasn't even close to his wide receiver. Then 0 yards after a block punt and throws it directly to the linebacker, and that one's not intercepted. So I hear you on the unblocked stuff. At the same time, like I think CJ is a really, really good player. He, again, I will repeat it, has not really begun to showcase that in 2025 at this point. And he's 24th in pass attempts through 2 games. And I understand that like Bobby Slowik got a whole bunch of hate, and a lot of it was deservedly so. But at least like Nico Collins got the ball in his offense. Like Nico Collins is not easily getting the football in this offense. He had to make a spectacular catch in the right side, which was another good throw. But it just doesn't feel like anything is easy going for the Houston Texans at this moment.
Also, just shout out that like Justin Watson on that route was looking really slow, and like they have 2 rookies that we liked. Like, let's get the rookie wide receivers in the mix. Like, let's get Christian Kirk back in the mix and see if this offense can move the ball. But your point, it's valid. Like, he's not played as good, and I think that the environment deserves some blame here. But he has not been as good as he was previously. But man, they're just like, when you're rotating your offensive line and your skill guys, like it's hard to get everything clicking right away, especially against like that front, like your centers up against Vita Vea, not very fun. What about Nick Chubb though? This was a good call by you.
Yeah, I was a big Nick Chubb guy heading into the season just because I felt like maybe a lot of play callers or offensive coaches across the league watched Nick Chubb run the football for the Cleveland Browns. And even after multiple injuries said, if there's ever a chance I can get him north and south in my offense, we at least know what he can do there. And that's the case. I mean, Dameon Pierce was a healthy scratch. And at the same time, I thought Woody Marks in the preseason did very well. Prior to this game, after the DP healthy scratch, then tweeted out that people should be picking up Woody Marks. And his first touch in the NFL or second touch went for 37 yards. So I'm not saying that Nick Chubb is going to own this backfield for the rest of the season. And in fact, I think Woody Marks, as I previously, pigeonholed him as mostly a passing down back, I think he can do a lot more than that here. So Who knows how successful a rushing attack for the Texans is going to be for the entire season. But this is kind of one of those dynamics that Nick Chubb early season, Woody Marks mid to late season makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, right now Nick Chubb's RB24 and RB31 usage. He runs straight. He's hard to tackle just because he's so strong still. You're not going to get any of the lateral mobility. You're not going to get like the exact explosiveness, but his vision was excellent. He's got a Hall of Fame vision and he's hard to tackle. So that's enough to keep it moving. I do think he's probably a good sell high candidate just because we don't know how sustainable this is all going to be. And yeah, Woody Marks is interesting for sure.
Did have a 27-yard pickup. I think it was his first 20+ yard gain in about 2 to 3 seasons on top of that. By now, I'm sure you've heard of Chubbies. They are the best elastic, stretchy shorts that you can wear for any type of situation. I just brought them down to Florida on a quick vacation prior to the NFL season, had the swim trunks, had the shorts, wore them for everything. And would you look at that, folks? For a limited time, our friends at Chubbies are giving our listeners $10 off with promo code The Show at chubbiesshorts.com/The Show. And that's $10 off your order with promo code The Show, which includes the NFL collection. By the way, Chubbies now has the best NFL apparel. So if you're not a jersey person, you can then wear the shorts to support your team. So again, you can support our show and tell them we sent you, express yourself, and level up your game day wardrobe with Chubbies. Also, as I mentioned, Chubbies is the ultimate football apparel brand, so much so that they created their own fantasy football league. George Kittle, Ian Rappaport, and others have come together to assemble the Chubbies League on NFL Fantasy. Each week, the top 5 scorers will win a chance at Chubbies polos and shorts combo with their team's logo on it. The grand champion gets a chance at the ultimate fan experience, a 5-city, 5-stadium NFL game tour with a +1, while the fantasy flop faces a hilarious and unforgettable punishment only Chubbies could pull off. So head to chubbieshorts.com/the Chubbies League to learn more and have some fun. Get ready for the most outrageous fantasy football season of your life. Okay, the other Monday Night Football game, we'll start with the loser. That is the Las Vegas Raiders. There is a ton to hit on here because after a really nice week 1 against the New England Patriots, it comes crashing down to earth against the Los Angeles Chargers. Geno Smith immediately throws an interception, finishes with 3. We've talked about the Green Bay Packers previously on this show, Hayden, in terms of their defense. The Chargers might be ranking up there too as well, just from the front to the mid to the back, just really well coached on all 3 levels. So was that the issue here for the Raiders, or are there more things we should worry about in the next 14 to 15 games?
There's a bunch of issues. I do think the Chargers defense is really good. Like they have a really, really elite linebacker and Derwin James, like the middle of the field. And when they're in these soft zone coverages, these guys fly around. So it's like really hard to pinpoint, and they can rally and tackle. They've got some decent players up front, maybe not without Khalil Mack at this point, but they're just like zone coverage is just really, really good. And you have to be really methodical and patient. And Geno Smith can do that for a little bit. And then he wants to throw these seam passes where obviously they were getting intercepted. So I do think the Chargers deserve some credit here. And Geno Smith was throwing the ball down the field very well in the first game. I do think the offensive line, though, is like the big main culprit here. And nobody's feeling the pain worse than Ashton Genty. He's at -4 yards before contact. In each one of the games he's finished with negative yards before contact. We kind of knew about this like going into the season. Like their offensive line wasn't very good. Jackson Powers-Johnson has been banged up as well. And like he wasn't even like that great on his rookie contract either. So they got some issues. I don't know exactly how they're going to like solve that issue. And if they want to play Brock Bowers like in one tight end sets, that comes with a little bit of a cost when you're trying to run the ball to some extent too. So they're having like some like, I think, philosophical questions on what exactly offense they want to be. And I think the thing that Chip Kelly's trying to figure out is like, where could I trust my offensive line and who can get open right now, because Brock Bowers doesn't look like himself.
Through 2 games, there are 54 running backs with 10+ carries. Ashton Genty ranks 54th with -0.1 yards before contact per attempt. When you go and you watch the tape, first he has to make the right read. Then he frequently has to break contact at the line of scrimmage. And then in order to get anything more than a 5-yard gain, he has to break another tackle at the second and even third level on top of this. the crazy thing, Hayden, is on a number of runs, he's kind of doing that. Like we are seeing, and I know everyone's talking about Mountain West and how could people draft this dude because he was breaking those. He's still breaking NFL tackles. They just swarm a lot faster, and those hits are happening much closer to the line of scrimmage. This is a big issue because, you know, he was running back 5. He was the 9th overall pick. And also the major issue, the major red flag is if he's not getting the freaking 2-minute drill and that is going to Dylan Laube, then the passing game work, the passing down selection is just so much more limited. And if you're losing games like this, and if you can't run the football, you also need to be in there from a passing down standpoint. And so, like you're saying, from a philosophical point of view, how can the Raiders spend this early of a pick and then just say to themselves, actually, we're going to use this Dylan Laube guy in 2-minute drill? I understand he's not bad in that area, but if you're picking a running back in the top 10 overall, he needs to be on the field 80 to 90% of the time. Like, that is just a fact. And they're not using him 80 to 90% of the time right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate right now. He's the RB20 in usage, RB29 in production. This reminds me of like the Kenneth Walker discussion last year where Kenneth Walker wasn't playing all the passing down snaps. He can catch the ball if they choose to do that, but that kind of came and went throughout the season. And he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage a bunch, and he was creating a bunch of yards after that, but it still ended up as like the RB14 season. I can see that for Ashton Jeanty, where like he's going to be better than what he has been right now, but systemically, the Raiders' defense is bad. He's going to be out of game script more times than not, and the offensive line is not going to be very good. And like, this is the problem. Like, when you draft the running back before you draft all the offensive linemen, like, this is what happens. Like, all of a sudden that rookie contract comes and goes, and you're still trying to figure out what you're doing up front. So I think this one's a little bit stickier. I'm not like writing Ashton Jeanty off. He's not going to be a total bust, but could he be the RB14 and you draft him as the RB5? I think that's like probably the more likely scenario at this point, which would be pretty frustrating, but it's the Raiders, man. Like, this is the first year in kind of a reset season where Geno Smith's got to play better to keep him in game scripts. And then hopefully they figure out this offensive line, but I don't know if you can do that in the middle of the first season.
And let me be clear. I ranked him over this guy, but there were multiple shows this summer that we mentioned, hey, Ashton Jeanty, who's being selected ahead of Derrick Henry, could be anything, including Derrick Henry. And then Derrick Henry was being drafted after Ashton Jeanty.
I mean, even Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor. Like,
right. Now, I don't think Ashton Jeanty as an individual is playing poorly. Like, sure, sometimes he's, not picking the right hole. And then other times his pass protection can be totally hit or miss. But as an individual, there is definitely talent there. He's just not getting the platform on a weekly basis to sustain that. Yeah. Hopefully that gets better moving forward, but it might not. It really might not. So it could be a volume-driven play versus the big, long, explosive gains that we know that Jeanty has in his back.
Yeah, for sure. And now there's still 2 other guys we got to get to. I think Brock Bowers is the main one. He was just like not himself. He played actually more snaps this week than he was last week.
Which is hilarious.
Yes, but still not all of them. Like, he's still being subbed out for some. He's at a 21% target share, which is like really good, but it's not elite. He just wasn't himself. Like, you can just tell he even was like about to land on his knee.
A bionic leg on.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great. And that's going to be a short week up again here. So he's going to be good. I think we might have to be a little bit patient until we figure out exactly like how serious this knee injury is. So he's still like going to be my tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 4. But like, I do think that like Trey McBride versus Brock Bowers, who would I rather have? It's for right now. It's definitely Trey McBride.
And then even the better strategy was just to wait for the Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren section.
There's a million
of drafts. Yes. Which again, we advocated for quite often. Next up for the Raiders, it is the Commanders and the Bears over the next 2 weeks. So, some interesting bounce back spots there, potentially. Mm-hmm. On the opposite end, the LA Chargers are absolutely flying, and Hayden, they're doing it in a very different way that if, let's say, prior to the 2024 season, if you told the entire NFL world that the LA Chargers would be number 1 in neutral pass rate at the start of the 2025 season, they would think you're absolutely bonkers and that Greg Roman is no longer calling their offense, but he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was also exactly what happened for the back half of the season. Last year, once they had Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert firing, and then they added, Keenan, and they're developing Quentin Johnson, who's like a very real player in this offense. So yeah, I mean, it's working. They can't run the ball. I mean, have you guys noticed about the run game? It's not working. So like, are they not going to just finish number 1 in neutral pass rate this year? it would make sense. Like Justin Herbert is really good, and he's got 3 wide receivers right now that on to some degree balance each other out. And like we haven't even seen like Ladd McConkey go crazy yet. Like he's sitting in zone coverage, a couple man coverage wins over the middle, but we have not seen him like rip off that 60-yard touchdown, which he's very capable of doing himself. So like to me right now, we have Keenan Allen's the wide receiver 20 in usage, Quentin Johnson wide receiver 25, Ladd McConkey wide receiver 41, but collectively the Chargers are 5th in wide receiver usage, the most neutral pass rate, and it's really efficient passing on top of that. It's not just like some scrub garbage time passes. We're talking about like downfield rifle shots from Justin Herbert. So I think all these guys are going to be top 30 guys in my rankings. And I think that Ladd McConkey is like a very obvious buy low right now. And there's a little bit more competition because Keenan Allen can work over the middle too. But like, if we're going to get MVP level Justin Herbert throws and they're going to drop back all day long, like how is Ladd McConkey not going to be a total stud by the end of the year?
And one way that they can support 3 wide receivers is that just 18% of their targets are going to running backs and tight ends so far. So that is being spread to at least 3 wide receivers on top of it. How they complement each other, I think you outlined it perfectly with Ladd and Keenan Allen, which was a great call as soon as Keenan Allen signed by you. And then Quentin Johnson, if he's just going to be able to take advantage of like broken coverages all the time, and we know Herbert just has a laser and cannon for an arm that if you have 1 or 2 missteps and don't cover one zone or don't carry one guy to the other defensive back, then he's going to hit these like 60-yard touchdowns. Like I know a lot of people pigeonholed Quentin Johnson and thought that he was best in short area yards after catch. You and I always thought it was best for him to stride out on these long patterns. And now he's going to be able to do that way more often. And you're going to get these like awesome spiked weeks in a really good offense. And those happen more often for a high variance player in really good teams.
And I like Greg Roman on this one. He's so good on these crossing routes. And what he did here is he had a cross and then stopped them halfway through the field once they had their zone coverage kind of calling things out. And then he moved back the other way. So yeah, this is good. I think the offensive line is like holding up fairly well in pass protection. Like obviously Joe Alt is a total stud and they're figuring it out. They cannot run the ball, but I do wonder like how much of their inability to run the ball right now is like partially a Hampton issue and partially an interior offensive line issue right now. But I did not like what happened in the fourth quarter of that game once Najee Harris, closed the entire game out after Hampton was struggling. So I know you have takes on Omari and Hampton, so I'd love to hear them.
Well, I kind of gave him during week 1 and people got upset because it was his first game and it was against the Chiefs. He just gives me Latavius Murray vibes and almost as a straight line, big back. You and I have said this though, where in some games that is not going to matter, that maybe his lateral agility, moving directionally is, I would say, not even a red flag, just not his strength. Okay.
It's not round 1 stuff. Yeah.
Correct. But in games that they can create caverns for him over the middle of the field, between the tackles, if you give him the second, third level, he's a big dude who can absolutely fly and has incredible acceleration. So no doubt in my mind, there's going to be some 20, 30, 40-yard gains. Maybe even longer than that. We have not seen them yet. But I'm not going to say it's Caleb Johnson-esque, but if you clog his vision and his lane and force him to move laterally, then he's not going to be the best. That's just not his game. And it wasn't at North Carolina. And so again, on good teams, this isn't going to be as much of an issue as it was if he were talking about behind the 30th or 25th best team. This could be a top 5, top 10, maybe offense at worst. And so my red flags just of him as an individual are going to carry less weight because of that. At the same time, turning the football over and then Najee Harris immediately in this game after another week of rest, getting more work and more snaps. And they already signed him to a decent deal in free agency. That does give you pause that a first round pick isn't going to get, maybe even 60% of the work the rest of the way.
Yeah, we see this one pretty similar. I'm feeling fairly nervous about Omari and Hampton right now. He's going to rip off long runs. He also, I think, needs to do that. If they're going to pass the ball to their receivers constantly and they're going to use a little bit of a rotation, I think they're going to use Najee Harris to some degree, and Omari and Hampton's not like Mr. Success Rate, then the only way you make up for all that is he's ripping off long runs. So I think like he has to do that for it to work. So I think like this next week, like RB 25 in my rankings, like somewhere in there. And I think Najee Harris is going to be in my like top 36 or so. So we'll see how this one plays out. It's way too early to completely write him off, but he was like a 3rd round pick. And right now it's it's looking a little bit more difficult for him to hit that because we know that the Chargers are going to be really pass heavy. And then the goal line touches, like Najee Harris is 242 pounds. Like we got to make sure that Najee Harris isn't stealing some of those goal line touches as well.
Yeah, if you combine both weeks, right now the Chargers, despite how great their passing offense is and being in positive game scripts and all this type of stuff, they are dead last in rushing EPA at minus 0.373. And then if we look at the success rate, that is much better, but that's still 23rd. That is not what you want to see when you spend, a first round pick. And sure, having a left tackle go down and reworking this stuff and maybe not having a pristine left guard and right guard and, even your right guard missing multiple weeks in training camp, it could potentially get better. But we always talk about how you won in college. Is that transferring how you won in the NFL? And then same thing with maybe some hangups in terms of the stylings and the traits that you have. And to me, it's like a perfect carbon copy between what is working for Omarion Hampton and what didn't work at the same time.
It's not just us. It was 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter, and they didn't have him on the field. They had Hassan Haskins on the field, and they ran an end around. Like, that would be a pretty good time to use your first round running back, and he's not even on the field.
So let me ask you this, since we talked about these two, and I'll do this a bit later on with some other rookies once we get to them. Ashton Genty drafted as running back 5. Currently, he's running back 27. Omarion Hampton drafted as running back 12. Currently, running back 44. The panic meter is what on both of them?
I think it's pretty high. And it's not because they're not going to finish as top 15, top 30 running backs. It's like, how do you get back to the draft capital? Like, you drafted Ashton Genty ahead of Jonathan Taylor. Like, how are you making up that gap? Same with Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving. Like, the other guys around these guys have been balling out. Like, James Cook was the guy that's being drafted next to Omarion Hampton. Like, how are we making up that difference? So, like, these guys are going to be startable guys. They're going to have big games. They're going to be good football players. But, like, the draft capital has to be part of this conversation too.
I think that Ashton Genty still ends up as at least a top 15 running back in fantasy football. And then for Omarion Hampton, I believe he still ends up as a top 25 scoring running back in points per game. But that is, again, different than running back 5 overall and running back 12. It could get up to that point, but I'm just saying, like, the floor for me is top 15 and then top 25 for both of these guys. All right, we'll finish out the top 10 teams with a few that piqued our interest. Let's kick things off with the Jacksonville Jaguars, because Brian Thomas Jr. is, maybe for bad reasons, the talk of the town. He is credited with 19 targets to open the season in just 2 games, Hayden. That has equaled 5 catches for 60 yards. Is this a buy low or a buyer beware?
No, this is like the most obvious buy low. And there's also, like, it's interesting to talk about what's happened through 2 weeks, but he's the wide receiver 3 in expected points. And we know he's a stone cold baller. So, like, he's going to be fine. I do think it is the same issues that he had last year. And it's I think, a large part of the Trevor Lawrence problem. It's both kind of compounding, and it's against zone coverage. Like, right now as a team, they've completed 51% of their zone coverage pass attempts, which is easily the worst in the NFL. Like, league average removing screens against zone coverage, like 65%. And they just, like, don't know when to settle. They don't know. Trevor Lawrence doesn't know if he's going to be leading somebody, if he needs to settle down, throw it low. The ball is always traveling high. So they need to iron all this stuff out. I also think that Liam Cohen is, like, trying a lot. Like, they have a lot of motion. They're rotating a lot of guys. Their second best wide receiver is playing defense on half the days at practice. So they're kind of, like, throwing a lot at the kitchen table, and, like, it's, like, largely working. But you're also going to lead into some mistakes here. So I do think that Brian Thomas can go for a 90-yard touchdown against man coverage right over the top. They're going to get him in the screen game. And the fact that he's getting all these zone targets is a good thing. It's just, like, the weaknesses that showed up last year. If there were any weaknesses in Brian Thomas's game, it was, like, this specific thing. And, like, since there was, like, 5 of them this last game, it's, like, being highlighted a lot. And one of them went for an interception.
Yeah, I do think he's being afraid to take a hit over the middle of the field at this point too. I understand the first one that turned into an interception, it was a debate of if he should settle, or he kind of stuck out an arm. He really didn't go for it. And then there was even one that I thought was more egregious that just went incomplete near the goal line that he really did alligator arm it. And I know that Brian Thomas Jr. took a massive hit in the preseason when he was trying to work over the middle of the field. I don't know if that's lingering. Liam Cohen in his press conference, shout out to Coach Speak Index, noted that he is apparently in Brian Thomas Jr. carrying a wrist injury, even though he wasn't on the injury report, which is something maybe to note. But I'm with you. This is an incredible buy low, because this is an offense that has tons of passing assets in a play caller we definitely believe in, but they just haven't gotten it all together in a 2-game sample. I think by a 8-game sample, a 10-game, a 12-game, even more than that, this is going to gel and they are going to figure it out. And Brian Thomas Jr. could be a huge beneficiary of that. Now, he was also a first-round pick. So if you are worried about that return, I think that is a big deal. But again, if you want to take advantage of the person who is panicking, I would definitely do that as well.
Yeah, if redraft was happening right now, I think I would still have him as a top 25 overall pick. So like if you can trade a 3rd round value for Brian Thomas, I think I would be eating that up, especially with the Travis Hunter stuff is like, I think officially escalated a little bit just after week 2, because when he did play more corner, that meant a little bit less wide receiver snaps, and there's some injuries in the secondary. So I think we need to like really kind of nitpick this Travis Hunter stuff. But if Hunter is kind of a little bit less involved on offense, like just at the margins, obviously that does help Brian Thomas to some degree too.
So on that note, with 11 minutes left in the 3rd quarter, Jarian Jones was injured and didn't play another defensive snap. I do want to note he did play one more special team snap, but just only one, and then no more defensive snaps. After that mark, Travis Hunter played 31 of his 43 defensive snaps after the outside corner 2 for the Jaguars went down. So I'm sure you have comments on that, and also just his performances at wide receiver to this point.
Well, he's being used like Cole Beasley on offense, which is like, I get because he was so good in the screen game and he can run these choice routes, but he's not out there in 2 wide receiver sets. He's only getting so many snaps on the outside. And when he is running routes on the outside, it's like 2nd and 20, like a little slant, little off coverage, like whatever. So a lot of his like production right now is like underneath right now. And they did try to get that big post route where Trevor Lawrence threw that interception, but I think that Travis Hunter is good enough to be an outside wide receiver and just go win down the field. And they have not used him in that capacity yet. Now, is it a lot to ask him, hey, you need to learn how to run all these choice routes and this, all the stuff in the slot, and now you need to go learn how to play outside wide receiver, and you got to learn how to play slot corner, and you got to play outside corner? Like, is that a lot? It does seem like it's a lot. Like there was a rep where Travis Hunter just didn't get his eyes turned around as the outside, like kind of sitting in zone coverage, and the ball went right past his head. Would he have completed that pass if he was playing more, practicing more on offense? Like, probably so. So I do think there's like, they got to kind of figure out what the hell they're going to do with Travis Hunter. And right now, like through 2 weeks, it feels like it's a lot and he's playing a lot of snaps, but it doesn't seem like they're maximizing like his actual abilities, which to me is like, he can be like a legit wide receiver 1 on the outside, but I've just like not seen that many reps of it.
Okay. You ready for some really simple analysis? Just over 2 games, right? Having De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington, and Britton Strange as your leading receivers, after spending 3 first-round picks on Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, that just doesn't make sense from like a offensive construction standpoint. But that's what we have here at this moment. I'm not talking about targets. I'm just talking about overall production. And that's where it is right now. So to me, it's back to the drawing board. It's to keep it simple, stupid a little bit. I'm not sure how you can do that after spending all summer moving Travis Hunter around, but they should do that. In order to win football games, you need to score touchdowns. And as they have said, Travis Hunter was drafted to score touchdowns. Just so I can get a firm opinion from you, and maybe that's not possible. Tell me if you're still like gathering information here. But because this was such like a lightning rod topic on the show, and mainly with the commenters who we appreciate giving you different perspectives than us. I was all in on drafting Travis Hunter this year at his cost because it still wasn't like a Brian Thomas Jr. price tag or even a 2nd or 3rd round price tag. Are you now regretting drafting so much Travis Hunter?
Well, right now he's like wide receiver 39 in usage. That was like lower in week 2 than it was in week 1. So he's like kind of profiles right now as a wide receiver 4. That said,
but he was drafted as wide receiver 31. I do want to mention.
Right. So he's not that far behind and he's a rookie. This thing can go either way because if that corner injury / benching is true and he's going to play more corner, like this thing could go off the rails. At the same time, part of the whole Travis Hunter discussion was if he hits, like you have a league winner and like you have to take on some bust risk associated with that. And like right now it has not gone completely smooth. All that said, Jacksonville is number 2 in wide receiver usage collectively. Now they've spread that out between the other guys in the offense, but
Parker Washington and De'Ami Brown,
yeah, mostly those 2 guys. But if this condenses around, like you said, the guys they spent the 3 first-round picks and like very high draft picks at that too, then this thing can go really, really, really right. And Trevor Lawrence, I think, as he sits there with Liam Cohen and they learn from each other, that's going to look a little bit better too. So I'm like a little bit nervous about Travis Hunter, but I still think this thing can get sorted out. I'm just like, he just feels like he's split between everything right now. And I think you can see it on his offensive snaps right now. And hopefully that kind of corrects over the season.
My final comment is, if the Jaguars offense looked great and hit the ground running from a passing standpoint, and Travis Hunter was not looking great and he was like the anchor of the group, then I would be concerned. But it's just not flowing 100% right now. It's not what we expect this thing to look like in week 8 or week 10. So again, to me, once the offense looks better, Travis Hunter's production is going to look better too. So I'm not going to say unmoved, but I am still confident in Travis Hunter paying off a wide receiver 31 price tag this season.
Yep. Yeah. Just got to condense that usage.
Let's talk about the running backs though, because I would argue both of them are paying off their price tags. 18 snaps this week, 8 carries for 42 yards and 2 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. And obviously Travis Etienne owned most of the majority of snaps besides him. What are you seeing in this backfield?
Tootin's passing the eye test. There's like no way around it. And the efficiency is there. And like he deserves like his amount of snaps right now, if not more. And that's very encouraging because there's nobody else to get the ball to. It's like just these 2 guys. And that's going to be the case for the rest of the season. And Liam Cohen's just a complete freak in how he uses his running backs. And it works really well. Playing into that though is like Travis Etienne has the most screens at the position. He's got 4 screens and it's working. And then you look at rushing yards after contact, he's the RB3 in that category. Now, a little bit of that was obviously that big run, but like that was a big run. And like we have not seen that from Travis Etienne in a long time. So I think both these guys are playing well. You can argue that Tootin like looks a little bit better, but Travis Etienne looks really good too. And he's done nothing wrong. And right now he's the RB7 on RB12 usage. And then Bashal Tootin is not playable yet, but he's getting closer there. And he's like not even rostered in 100% of Yahoo leagues, for example. So like that's got to change. Like these 2 guys are going to be smashes. I don't know what part of the season there's going to be a switch, if ever, but like if you drafted either one of these guys, you should be really happy.
This might be the last window to be able to buy Bashal Tootin in your league. Now I say that, and we're saying all this bad stuff about the Jaguars offense, how it doesn't pass the eye test for all 4 quarters, even though they've scored 26 and 31 points. But I do want to bring up, they play the Texans, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Seahawks over the next 4 games, which are really good defenses in comparison to the Panthers and the Bengals over the last 2. But at the same time, again, ETN is playing really good football right now. And look, maybe I'm biased, but I just believe this is your standard, typical, the veteran is doing great in September and October, and it'll help you win you weeks because right now Travis Etienne is a top 5 scorer at the position. And then as we go along, Bashal Tootin is the one that they are going to lean on, and his opportunity is going to grow as we go along because, like you said, he is passing the eye test. I could be totally wrong with that. They could both be a factor here, like we got with Rashad White and Bucky Irving last year. But one of those guys, like, was really the one you needed in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both of them were after pick 100 though, so I think you split up the season halfway. I think you're going to win here. Just real quick, Bashal Tootin in the first half was getting real run, and then it was a little bit more Travis Etienne once they kind of had the game a little bit more sorted out in the second half. But yeah, it's a 60-30, and then you get a little bit of LaQuint Allen in there. But you're going to get free touches here. Like I said, Etienne first in screens, Tootin also scoring touchdowns in the receiving game. And like, it's looking decent, and they're hiding that offensive line. So like, that's where I think Liam Cohen's like doing a good job with this is like the offense still looks like fun to me. It just looks like overwhelming. And hopefully as they get more experience in the offense, it'll all like kind of click.
Let's talk about another split backfield going to Seattle with the Seahawks. Last week on the show, we mentioned that Zach Charbonnet was at 1.5 yards before contact per attempt in week 1. Ken Walker was at 0.3. This week in week 2, Ken Walker was at 3.4 yards before contact per attempt. And Zach Charbonnet was at negative 1.1. But all off season, we discussed how outside zone from Clint Kubiak and his family tree just perfectly suits Ken Walker's background and his skills. They ran outside wide zone, according to Fantasy Points, on 12 times against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 6 for Ken Walker went for 35 yards. The 6 for Zach Charbonnet went for negative 10 yards. So it just, to me, was so great to see the chunk gains over and over again for K9. And I understand we're going to have a snap conversation here and who got the touches when and where, but the glove fit perfectly in the process standpoint.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I think he's better than Zach Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker was insane last year. Efficiency and forced missed tackles, and the offensive line looks a little bit better in theory. They've at least got more health and investment up there. So over the course of the season, hopefully that kind of solidifies. Just the interesting part is just the roles really didn't change all that much. They're rotating drives largely for now. And I think that's like kind of your point is like, this is all for now. It's like, this can change at any point. And if Kenneth Walker gets more touches and he's as electric as he's always been, then you have like a total smash. But yeah, it just Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, you can see it on the chart right here. They're rotating drives. And then Zach Charbonnet gets the 2-minute drill if there is a 2-minute drill situation, which not every team gets every single week. But man, I think Kenneth Walker deserves more touches. Like I hope they don't do this like drive by drive rotation. I think it's a little bit unfair to Kenneth Walker, who I just think moves differently than Zach Charbonnet, who I also like.
Walker had 4 runs of 10 plus yards in this game. Zach Charbonnet had 10 total yards in this game. Someone pointed this out on Twitter, and I think it's a good way of putting it. And again, it's maybe really simple analysis. Zach Charbonnet needs the blocking, and when he gets it, he can be successful. Ken Walker can be more creative without the blocking, as we have seen in terms of forcing missed tackles. But when he also does get the blocking on top of it, Ken Walker then generates explosives. He has more creativity. He has more individual talent on top of this. So again, when we drafted Kenneth Walker III and talked about him on this program, I definitely had hoped that he was going to have 60% of the workload. But what I knew is that Ken Walker was a perfect fit in this rushing scheme that Clint Kubiak was bringing to this offense and why Mike McDonald, hired him. And so that part is coming to fruition, and we're only 2 weeks in of a 17-week season. And it just to me cannot continue if one guy is totally outperforming the other one.
Yeah, this feels like kind of like the worst case scenario. Like I think eventually they'll just get more work. He's RB30 through 2 weeks. Like I think if we did this for the next 4 weeks, he's going to be in the RB20s, if not in the teens. So hold the line there with Kenneth Walker. I do think that real quick, JSN and Cooper Kupp are both kind of interesting. JSN right now, 41% targets, the wide receiver 2 overall. He's top 12 in production and expected points, and he's just been the offense. Last week, Cooper Kupp did have a good game. I went back and watched him. A bunch of zone coverage, like a handful of man coverage wins, but he just kind of reminds me of Keenan in that he's smart. He's going to have some zone coverage wins, and then he's kind of hard to tackle initially, right after contact. So not a whole lot of takeaway stuff. It wasn't like they're designing a bunch of touches, but if you do get a big zone coverage team, I do think that Cooper Kupp is an interesting guy in a full PPR flex spot.
Final note from our buddy Ben Fennell. The Seahawks are actually leading the NFL with a 49.4% pressure rate via Next Gen Stats. Seattle's using, though, a 4-man rush on 83% of snaps and blitzing at the 31st rate, just 13%. That is an insane combination then, if you're creating the most pressure, but also blitzing nearly the least amount in the league. So again, this Mike McDonald defense might only get better as we get Devin Witherspoon and Nick Emanwori and all these guys going along here too. Miami Dolphins are up next. A tale of 2 games on some level. Week 1, they were absolutely horrible. And then week 2, it improved. I will say, Tua has just 55 attempts through 2 games. That is 21st across the league, which maybe not as similar to previous top scoring offenses the Dolphins have put out. Hayden, when I watched this game, they immediately turned to Devon Achane. He had targets or touched the ball on 5 of the opening 8 snaps. And whereas there was so much bad from Tua over the middle of the field in week 1 against the Colts, the vast majority of his passes were outside the numbers. It was on corner routes. It was on outside breaking routes, which to me, again, noted that, hey, we can at least pivot from what was giving us pitfalls, even if that final interception was directly over the middle of the field to another linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a totally one-dimensional offense. Right now, they have 27 carries. The second lowest in the NFL is the Bengals, who also can't run the ball, but they're at 40. So we're talking about a difference of 13 through 2 weeks. They are just a pass-first offense. It hasn't been fantastic, and that's why the total volume of plays is really, really low right now. But there was some signs of life. Even back in week 1, when I went back and watched Tyreek Hill, I still think he's an incredible athlete. Is he the same guy getting his toes in, maybe rounding some things? Sure, he's probably not all there. The dude is still absolutely flying, and in this one, he at least got only a couple, but the big explosive play, which Tua underthrew him, was a cover 1 look or a single high look over the top, and they finally threw the ball down the field. So you're getting like quarters, big out routes and stuff. He's still a decent enough athlete. At the same time, 21% targets is like way off his peak. And like the big reason is because Devon Achane is second in targets at the position. And that's like by design. And like that should continue too, because the Devon Achane receiving stuff clearly works.
Yeah, that 47-yard catch for Tyreek Hill on another day or maybe another team could have been a 65-yard touchdown. He just burned through two defensive backs and then had to wait so long because helium was in the football for the safety and corner to overrun it.
It was wild
in his breadbasket. And tons of angle routes here for Devon Achane, who even at times Hayden was lining up at wide receiver, and they would use Malik Washington as the running back too and give him some design carries. Mike McDaniel was a little bit in his bag. He got back to the order of operations going sideways on a bunch of these runs. Yeah. So the Achane usage is just exceptional, and that should only continue with, again, the right guard and the right tackle out. Okay, who they played in the New England Patriots. Let's talk about them. This was an awesome Drake May performance.
I thought it was a great Josh McDaniels performance too. Like, how many times was a tight end or running back wide ass open? And like you pointed out on Twitter, like that included Travion Henderson, like out in space, but also from Andre Stevenson up against like a pretty heavy footed linebacker on that big downfield, almost like wheel route out and up. So yeah, there was guys wide open. I think that Drake May like was kept pretty clean, and then he was pushing the ball downfield in his spots. They still don't have like a go-to wide receiver. Kayshon Boutte had that like really nice man coverage touchdown, but Steph Diggs only 61% routes. Like it's a really like balanced offense, a lot of rotation, maybe too much rotation at running back, but spread the ball around here, and then the big chunk gain to Ramondre Stevenson. But like you said, like the Dolphins defensive line, like is the spot that's supposed to be like their strength of their team. And right now they're like dead last in win rate. So we'll have to figure out if that's a Dolphins problem or if this Patriots offensive line's kind of gelling together a little bit quicker than anticipated. But either way, it's a much better Drake May performance. And I thought a good game called from Josh McDaniels.
We do need to talk about the snap changes here for the running back position, because I made a bold prediction that Travion Henderson snaps would increase, and it got pie in my face because they actually decreased. And it was for good reason. We talked about it constantly during the draft process and this summer that one of Travion Henderson's superpowers was his pass protection and his explosiveness off of that. And that's a cool combo to have. His pass protection in this game was miserable, shockingly bad.
I couldn't believe it.
Holding penalties, just missed assignments, all of it. And that happened somewhat early in the game. And you could tell that just forced Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel to lose some trust, which really sucks. So it dropped from 35% down to 32%. Antonio Gibson got up there to 17% of snaps. And this is even more frustrating because Ramondre Stevenson scored as one of the best running backs of the week without scoring a touchdown. And it's because he had a long reception. I don't know if you saw this, but Mike Vrabel revealed that long reception was actually created in practice for Travion Henderson. And he said, because basically we could not trust him, we couldn't keep him out there on the field. So my hope is that somehow, some way he starts earning trust moving forward. It was just stunning for me, Hayden, that it was due to one of the things that he was really good at coming out of college.
That's what makes these rookies so crazy. And it probably will be like a 1-game blimp. And then like throughout the rest of his career, he's going to be good in pass protection. He's undersized for that kind of role, but he was just so good at it. And like the holding penalties, even there's one on special teams too. So yeah, just like top down, the Patriots right now, 29th in neutral pass rate. So this is going to be an offense that's like very running back focused. The problem right now is Ramondre is the RB28 usage and actually performing above expectation because that big play. And then Travion, who's still like fairly efficient on his touches. He's only the RB40 in expected points. Like I just can't start him right now. Like I'm hoping that changes. It will likely change. I don't know when that's going to happen. I think the hard part with this one in particular is even if he does get the 60% of the pie, at the goal line is always just going to be Ramondre because he's just like 25 pounds bigger. So I think that's the hang up I continue to have with Travion Henderson, like how we like totally pay off that RB16 or RB18 price tag that we were paying for him. But yeah, in the short term, you just can't play him yet. Like make him prove it first. And then once he has that big game on your bench, then we'll go back to the drawing board. Like, all right, where do we go from here?
I hear you. For the entire season though, and again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I am holding the line because to me, his explosiveness still pops. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
like
on those
he
catches.
moves out there just differently than any other person on the field.
Agreed.
And as the season goes along, you know, you make mistakes, you learn from them, you improve on them. And I even thought he showed power in some of his runs too. Like when the lane was filled, he tried to run over those defenders on top of it. And they're already trying to, you know, manufacture stuff out in space. So right now he is the running back 36. He was drafted as, let's just call it the running back 17. I'm with you that right now, until he gets to at least 50% for one game, you cannot play him in your lineups. But I am not writing him off for the entire season. And once he does get 60% plus of usage, I think he could be a really fun playmaker out there on the field.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted him in the second round. He's got tons of talent. So I hope the pass protection thing was like just a complete one-off. We've never seen that before. And last note, like you said, Antonio Gibson was playing early in the game. This was not like Travion got benched because of pass protection and then Antonio Gibson replaced him. Like, no, like Antonio Gibson was out there multiple times in the first quarter as well. So to some degree, it's a 3-back committee right now.
All right, before we go any further, if you made it this far, please hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up. It really means a lot to us right now. And even share and tell a friend about the flagship show that is Stats versus Film. Okay, we go in alphabetical order here on out. That kicks on us over to the Arizona Cardinals. So many of these teams we know would hope or look different from 2024 to 2025. Hayden, the Arizona Cardinals look nearly identical to the team that played in, week 17 of last year and now in week 2 of 2025.
Really balanced. They're at 43% neutral pass rate, which is 26th in the NFL. So they're trying to run the ball. They're not doing it like all that well. And then they're having a couple shot plays to Marvin Harrison and then a couple goal line fades where he's not coming down with it. We had a key drop from Marvin Harrison. They've been winning the games comfortably because the schedule has been so easy in the first 2 weeks. So we have not seen them like put the pedal to the floor. But there was a chart that I did post over from PFF, and it was just looking at what happens when a quarterback is under pressure. So like kept clean, screens, all the stuff, remove it. Just under pressure. Kyler Murray is throwing a target at the lowest rate in the NFL. He's taking sacks, throwing the ball away, batted passes, scrambling, all that stuff. He's not throwing the damn football, which is a problem if you're Marvin Harrison, who now through 2 weeks, one good game, but collectively over the 2 games is the wide receiver 37 in expected points. And like I said, the pass rate for the Cardinals is really low. And then when they are passing the ball, it's going to Trey McBride, who's got a 30% target share, easily the highest at his position there. So like you said, it's like the same offense that I've been used to. And like you've seen the peaks of Marvin Harrison, you've seen the downfalls of Kyler Murray, and then Trey McBride and James Conner, like the most steady parts of this offense by far. But like, what is supposed to change, man?
Yeah. Marv is running, a few more tight splits, a little more from the slot, a few more crossing routes on top of it. And he won a tight window target in week 1, but you haven't seen like a total change in his game that I think a lot of people were hoping for. And again, that might happen, but this just seems, and I've seen a bunch of Cardinals fans and beat writers and all this talking about it, that, hey, if this team's going to make the playoffs and even win a playoff game, the offense has to play better. Like it's been the Saints and the Panthers these 2 weeks, and it really hasn't been inspiring football at all. Yeah. And then the next 2 games are against the 49ers and the Seahawks defenses that will put you in a bind and force you to make some mistakes. I'm not going to repeat this every single week. I will do it one more time. Just Kyler's not letting this stuff play through. He just moves around a whole bunch and plays the high variance game. Sometimes it works, like that ludicrous scramble he had this past week. And then another time when he went off script and just threw a stupid interception that if he just took the sack, it would have ended the game, basically. So the other part we do need to talk about is the James Conner versus Trey Benson. James Conner has gotten touchdowns. He has gotten the most work. Trey Benson, again, is getting more work than he did last year. He's just like slightly eating into James Conner's workload, but more so he's taking the passing down work that Emari Demercado got from last season.
Yeah, completely agree there. James Conner's RB19 in usage, still RB17 in points. Conner's still breaking a lot of tackles, third most in the NFL, like in total forced missed tackles. And he still gets screens too, and including got that screen touchdown a couple of weeks ago. So at the margins, he's taken a hit. Like it's harder for him to be like the top 12 guy. But he's still like a rock solid RB2. And I think they found like a good avenue to get Trey Benson out on the field a little bit more and hopefully get him to spring up for some big plays. But yeah, James Conner, not like all that move, but it is a good point that unless his offense gets better and unless he plays a couple more snaps per game, then he's kind of like entrenched as like a rock solid RB2, looking a lot better than the rookies that were drafted around him for sure. But it has taken a little hit.
For now. Okay. Atlanta Falcons are next. This team is totally a running back focused approach at this point in multiple levels. One, we know Bijan Robinson is just an incredible talent. I mean, he's already credited for 15 forced missed tackles just as a ball carrier. The next closest runner is at 10, and that's Jonathan Taylor. Okay.
Wild.
Then the other part of this is that they are really featuring Bijan Robinson in a Todd Gurley-like receiving role back in the early Rams days of Sean McVay. That has really changed the Michael Penix that we got in the final, 3 games of last season when he had a 10.6 average depth of throw last year. That is down to 6.9 yards. So that's a jump from second longest in the league down to 29th. I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. It's just a philosophical change and gives us a massive ceiling for Bijan Robinson as a runner and receiver on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's RB2 in usage. A lot of receiving work. He's an exceptional ball carrier too. They're running the ball so much that even like Tyler Algier, who to me probably the best handcuff in football, he's right now through 2 weeks is the RB26 himself in usage. And like once we get to bye weeks and there's injuries and stuff, I do think that he might even have like some flex appeal. But he's also been a proven guy where if Bijan Robinson is getting all this work, ever misses time, Tyler Algier is going to be one hell of a player. So he's like only like 30% rostered. Like that needs to be like truly like 100%. Like there's a lot of guys that you have on your bench right now who are not nearly as valuable as Algier is. But like you said, with the Penix stuff, even in week 1, they were just throwing the ball underneath the entire game. The Vikings, like I always struggled kind of taking a whole lot from when teams play the Vikings because they're so weird that I want like another week to kind of digest what's happening. But like you said, the ADOT is way down. I think a lot of it's just because you're just getting Bijan into the flats and then on these little slot routes, and he's cooking everybody. So like they should continue doing it.
That's a great point on the opponent. Playing the Vikings last week is much different than playing the Panthers this week in terms of your ability to hit dropbacks and throw down the field. I do want to add that according to JJ Zachariason, our buddy, Kyle Pitts ran a route on 100% of Atlanta Falcons dropbacks last night. That hasn't happened since week 1 of the 2024 season. He is currently the tight end 11 on the year. Did Raymond McLeod get injured or did he just get replaced? Because Raymond McLeod only played 23% of snaps this week. And again, that means Kyle Pitts vaulted all the way up to 80% of snaps with even a second tight end and Charlie Warner also playing 85% of snaps.
Yeah, Pitts is tight end 12 in usage through 2 weeks. We'll see if that holds. Darnell Mooney, like just back in part of the offense. Drake London's been playing through injuries, so we'll see how much this holds. But encouraging to see, like if he's running more underneath routes, it's going to provide him some level of a floor. So I think he's more of a tight end 2 than a tight end 1 once Mooney and London are like fully themselves. But a lot more interesting, that's for sure.
Baltimore Ravens. Let's go there. We talked about this on the Instant Reaction show on Sunday night. But when touchdowns go to all the players we don't care about, it stinks. And that means no Derrick Henry, no Mark Andrews. Instead, it's Devontae Walker and whoever else you want to throw out there on the field. I will say the 2 most important early season items are both pass catchers. The first one is that Zay Flowers is wide receiver 6 on the season. And then Mark Andrews has 2 catches so far this year.
Yeah, let's start with Zay Flowers. 42% targets, leads the NFL. He's getting screens in clutch situations. They're getting like end arounds and stuff. He's like the focal point aside from Derrick Henry on the offense right now. So he's getting everything. It's harder for him to score red zone touchdowns because of his size. And then they're so successful running the ball. That's always going to hold him back from that crazy season. But through 2 weeks, he's the wide receiver 6 and wide receiver 11 usage. And it all feels like sustainable. Like if they're going to throw him screens and he's like improving as a downfield player, like this thing can be really, really good. And then on the flip side, Mark Andrews, 8% target rate. So he's touchdown or bust. He was touchdown or bust last year, and he like ran completely pure with touchdowns. That could easily happen, but 8% targets, and this is without Patrick Ricard and without Isaiah Likely. Like, why shouldn't he be dropped? Like if you have Juwan Johnson in Mark Andrews, like you're easily starting Juwan. Like he's not a must start player right now.
I have nothing else to say about the team. You just want to move on?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills next. Just a superhuman at quarterback. And this game was a no contest. like starting in the second quarter against the New York Jets. They took a beating, their defense, in week 1 against that Ravens team that we just discussed. And then you go out there and Breece Hall's trying to run the football. And then Terrell Bernard, who's getting run over in week 1, is running through offensive lineman to tackle Breece Hall at the line of scrimmage. So it was the biggest Jekyll and Hyde, hot and cold, first and second weeks that I remember in quite a while.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Bills, right? Not the Jets?
Yes.
Okay. With the Bills, I had the same notes that the game was such a mess that I only looked at the first half participation because I just wanted to throw away anything that happened in the second half. And with that, Keon Coleman was out there for 15 of 23 routes, which on the margins, it does matter. Like his participation was down. Same thing with Josh Palmer. Same thing with Khalil Shakir. And through the first 2 weeks, the Bills are 28th in neutral pass rate, down at 42%. And then once you get into the red area, you're obviously going to get a lot more Josh Allen down there. So Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, they're nice guys on your bench. Are any of them starts? I wouldn't say so. And then even Dalton Kincaid, who's like technically a tight end 1 right now, he's on a 14% target rate in that first game where they had 84 plays. Like that's going to be the outlier. Like there's going to be a lot more games that happen like last week where it's the game's over because the team's so good. So it's really just like James Cook and Josh Allen really for me.
Yeah. The Keon Coleman stuff, again, really exciting after week 1. I don't blame you if you picked him up, but just with how he is as a player and how this team is constructed, I don't know if this is, your plug and play pair wide receiver with top quarterback for 4 weeks stuff. That's just not it. He is just Gabe Davis kind of, and you get really high variance, and that can really hit when it comes to players on good teams. The other part of this is James Cook. And we had this conversation throughout the month of August, where when he was going through his contract dispute, he was being drafted after Breece Hall, after Kyron Williams. And then it got to a point where I zoomed out and realized, okay, if we're worried about Breece Hall being in a split backfield, Kyron Williams being in a split backfield, we know that James Cook is. And yet we also know that James Cook is attached to this Bills offense and that he owns inside the 10-yard line stuff. And if that's the case, why isn't he just being drafted and being ranked ahead of those other guys? And I know I finally got there about the first week of August, and James Cook just looks like an insane fantasy asset right now.
Yeah, that touchdown run was right up there for one of the best of the entire week. He's the RB1 on RB6 usage. And I think your point is well taken, that it's not even just Josh Allen. It's a well-called offense that wants to use their running backs, and that's why the neutral pass rate's so low. And he's really good, and the offensive line is entirely back from where it was last year. And then they drafted even like a blocking tight end just to get out there and clear some space out too. So either really good spot. Like regression could only happen so much. Like I always say with regression, it's an average player in an average offense. Like this is neither of those. This is a good player in a great offense, maybe even a great player in a great offense. Like model breakers, like yes, Derrick Henry's going to break the model. James Cook is going to break the model. So he's probably a top 10 running back rest of the season if I was drafting today.
Carolina Panthers, they are 0-2, and it gets worse from there because they are down Austin Corbett, their center, and they're also down Robert Hunt, their expensive right guard, which I think is a massive deal. He's a tone setter. He's a leader for that team. He played basically every single game last year. And this team has already been struggling to run the football to open the season. And so, you have Cade Mays, who filled in for Austin Corbett last year. Then at right guard, it's just a massive drop down from Rob Hunt down to like Chandler Zavala. So again, this Panthers team faces the Atlanta Falcons, who have really learned how to rush the passer immediately. And so we'll see how they respond.
I love Chuba Hubbard, but man, like this feels like a sell high because he's been productive. He's the RB10 right now. And the Panthers have been nowhere near a lead where he's excellent at. But the problem was when I was a little bit higher than consensus on him was that, hey, the Panthers might be a little bit better this year. I don't know about that. You lost, other than Tedero and McMillan, like Robert Hunt is like right up there for the most important players on the entire team. Throw in your center too. So it's cluster injuries, and I don't trust the defense to keep the game script intact here. So Chuba's just going to be like grinding things out as best he can. Luckily, he's been catching passes to save it right now. So I still rank him as an RB2 for now, but the Panthers are right up there for like first overall pick potential. Like they're losing a lot of key guys right now. So luckily Tedero McMillan's a total monster, and that Bryce is like good garbage time. Will like just keep eating these little first downs. So you're going to get plenty of production from the pass game still, but the team collectively took a huge hit with those guys.
T-Mac is awesome. It was
Really
so
is.
cool to see him win after the catch this past week. We saw, the slant that he runs for 40 yards and kind of turns the corner just like he did at Arizona. And there was another like 3rd and 5 that was a quick stop route along the sideline. He tracks the corner with his, the left side of his eye, and then spins in the opposite direction, avoids that tackler, and then just with power finishes on an oncoming defensive back. He has 160 yards or more than that, 165 yards in the first 2 weeks of the season. So T-Mac is the real deal, and how he won in college is immediately translating to the NFL. Again, we'll repeat that whenever someone else is targeted on this team, that's when things go bad. And Dave Canales on multiple occasions has already said this week that Xavier Leggett's snaps are not going to decrease, and that he believes in Xavier Leggett and the work that he is putting in and how he is wired. And that was in the press conference. And that was also, I think Coach Speak Index pulled this in the in-house podcast too. So Xavier Leggett is still on the roster and still on the team. And then Jalen Coker comes back maybe in week 5.
Leggett being out there is good news for Tedder McMillan, because they can't keep throwing him the football. Like, the Panthers right now are wide receiver 1 in usage collectively. Now, like Hunter Renfrow got 1 million targets. Xavier Leggett's targets still count into that metric. But right now, T-Mac is wide receiver 16 in usage. This is a rookie who only gets better and better, and he's performing really well. So hopefully this team's just like a little bit more competitive than they showed the first 2 weeks. But I think that Bryce and T-Mac have lots of chemistry, and he's winning with these like very crucial man coverage reps. And like, it's in different ways. Like, you have like jump balls, you have like yards after the catch, you have like stop, face, and turn, and then win upfield. And you got some contested catch stuff. You see him sitting in zone. Like,
yeah,
what was he bad at as a prospect again? Like,
it's a fair question.
I don't know, man. I'm really thinking about like what the hell happened here.
He was very much loved on this program. Let's put it that way. Okay, Chicago Bears. I think the Bears are less of a Caleb Williams conversation and more of a conversation with everyone else. Let's first start with the positives, okay? Rome Odunze right now is wide receiver 4 on the season, and we theorized multiple times this summer that he could be this team's wide receiver 1. And to me, it's happening. He was, scripted and utilized. His first touchdown was very reminiscent to me of Jamison Williams, where, the opposition blitzed 6 in the Detroit Lions. They protected with 7. You had 2 push routes to force coverage off. And then I called him Jamison Williams, Rome Odunze crossing the field. And then just once he crosses the linebacker's face, then he can run it into the front pylon. And there was even more than that. He even had a couple drops, but Rome Odunze really made his mark in week 2. And that makes me really optimistic moving forward.
Yeah, that both his touchdowns, like, credit, he was out there. They were somewhat schemed up for him, but like largely it was just blown coverages, good play calls. But there was some other plays where like kind of dig routes, diving, like low passes. You had a couple of those. It does seem like you're not like throwing a million screens to DJ Moore and those other guys. So they're like actually like sitting there in the pocket and making Caleb like figure this thing out, which I think is good for the long-term health of this. They're not trying to like do this dink and dunk offense. They're like, all right, Caleb, like you're going to take some L's, you're going to take some sacks, you have to scramble around a little bit, but largely he's like trying to play in the pocket. And the more you play in the pocket, the better Rome Odunze looks versus DJ Moore, who I think is more like a mini Deebo Samuel type. So I think this one's going towards Rome Odunze. I'm not like buying wide receiver 1 or even like top 20 stuff rest of the season, but he's a good player. If he catches the ball more consistently, I'll like him a lot more.
James Odunze, we like you and your son quite a bit. Do not clip the show. Okay, the other point we need to talk about, and there's 3, but the second is the rushing game, all right? So DeAndre Swift, among 26 running backs this year with 25 plus carries, he's actually being given the 4th most yards before contact per attempt at 1.9. So you would think that this rushing offense is very good and very successful and very efficient. No, sir. The Bears, over the first 2 games, are still 31st in rushing EPA and 32nd in success rate. Your thoughts?
What's changed? Like, this is the same dude that he's been forever, and at some point, Kyle Monunga, he like dropped a pass, is going to get out there for more snaps, or
maybe
Roshan. I don't know. Maybe, like that's what makes DeAndre Swift, like in my rankings next week, I'm going to hate it. He should be a top 20 guy. Like that's where he's been producing. He gets the ball a ton. Am I thinking he's going to be a top 20 guy rest of the season? There's just no way that they can live by this. He's been bad. Like not even just the fumble, which is inexcusable. Obviously, it's just they have no success. Like Caleb is throwing interceptions on 2nd and 32. Why do you think that's happening? Because they can't run the ball. There's penalties. It's a total mess. So
just from a zoom out view with the Bears, again, if you're 0-2, there's a 10% chance you make the playoffs. I'd be very frustrated if I was a Bears fan because no team had more assets and basically cap space over the last 2 years to work with. And then this year, heading into it, Colson Loveland has no targets through 2 games. Luther Burden does not have many opportunities. Ozzie Trapillo and their other 2nd-round pick and Stewart are both inactive. So your first 4 picks in this previous draft class, after you added all these assets through trades and stuff, are just not on the field. They are not contributing. And you haven't fixed a major part of your offense, which is this running game. And so, again, how these assets were allocated makes no sense in this version of it. And it makes you think if they're 0-2, then something has to change. Like Colson Loveland has to get involved. Luther Burden has to get involved immediately, or else what was the point?
Yeah, I see the same thing. There's a quote from Ben Johnson after the game. I don't have it like written down in front of me, but he was saying, hey, I noticed on the film that some guys, when they were not getting the ball, were showing some character issues and that we can't have that. I tried to go back and find it. I couldn't find the exact plays, but typically
no one was walking to the bench mid-snap this time?
It wasn't as obvious as that. I have a guess on who this could be towards, but that was notable that like just after week 2, like we're having a lot of the same discussions there. Now I will say Caleb, I thought played like fairly well. There's a couple of like very crucial mistakes. There's a couple sacks that he took, but if they're going to play in the pocket and you get the better players on the field all of a sudden, I do think this thing could like at least calm down enough where you can actually grade this appropriately. But through 2 weeks, 0-2.
I do want to repeat. Look, DeAndre Swift is the running back 22. I'm not telling you all to bench him or to not play him in your fantasy lineups. If he's getting 80% of the snaps, you're playing DeAndre Swift every single week. But DeAndre Swift is a part of the overall problem with the success or lack thereof of the Chicago Bears at this point. But from a fantasy standpoint, look, when you're down 41-10 and you're playing 80% of the snaps, there's a good chance you get a garbage time rushing score, which is exactly what he did.
Yep. We're just saying to trade him. We're not saying to not play him. We're saying to trade him away.
Okay, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Putrid week 2 for them, but we did learn more about their running back room. They have 3 guys that they like to play. So Dylan Sampson was a fantasy winner in week 1, and then a downright fantasy loser in week 2 from a snap standpoint. And Quinshon Judkins, off of 2 days of practice, got 61 yards on 10 carries. Albeit, I will add, since this is stats versus film, the 31-yarder with 4 minutes to go was when they were down 41-10. But talk about this distribution here, because while Dylan Sampson looked like a nice late round pick, that can probably only sustain itself if the JF Jerome Ford on your screen no longer exists in this offense.
No more Jerome Ford. Let's send Jerome Ford to the Chicago Bears and let's start fixing some problems.
Is that going to help anything?
I mean, it's going to help Judkins and Dylan Sampson. I also note, even though the scoreboard was what it was, that was as impressive as a 31-yard run as there was all week. That was sensational stuff from Quinshon. So, yeah, I don't know what we're going to do here because Dylan Sampson has played well, albeit in a much reduced role. You can't start him, like, obviously. But with Quinshon Judkins, like, is this going to be a 50-50 backfield on a team projected for 17 points every week? And at that point, like, even if he's really good, what exactly is this? Because the Cleveland Browns are right up there just using their tight ends league high. And then they're obviously passing the ball at number 7 rates in the NFL as well in neutral situations. And they're not in neutral situations. They're typically losing by a bunch. So I'm kind of conflicted here because I think a lot of these players are standing out on film as like they're doing something right. Collectively, it does not matter. They're still the Cleveland Browns, but like I've liked Judkins in week 1 or week 2. I like Dylan Sampson in week 1. I like Harold Fannin in both these weeks. Cedric Tillman and David Njoku are fine enough players too. So they just spread the ball a bunch and they're not going to score very many points. But this is like the PPR scam offense of September for sure.
So a lot of people assumed that there was no way that Jerry Jeudy could be a loss at wide receiver 40. He's been wide receiver 45 so far this year. Yeah, it's just a different offense than the one that Jameis Winston was throwing the football around. Like you're saying, they have these younger pieces that they have investments in with Harold Fannin plus Njoku. Still have to get him the football. And then it's Judkins and Dylan Sampson and some other running backs, right? So
even Cedric Tillman.
I don't know if it's, and Cedric Tillman, who we really like as, a really powerful player. So I don't know. This is the biggest issue for me, not to sound like a broken record, with drafting the Browns, where if it's not going to be funneled, like when you're in bottom 3 or bottom 5 offenses, sometimes that can support one guy if he's standing out among everyone else. But if that small share of points per game is then being spread around 5 different assets, then really almost no one is going to get there in the end. And the only one who might is the tight end, because in comparison to other tight end scoring, that is a lower bar to clear.
Yeah, I think it's well put. David Njoku thinks to drop right now unless he gets traded. You want to hold on to him, but Harold Fannon's still making some plays, got a screen and another one here. But yeah, they're first in pass attempts right now. It's like that's been keeping these guys afloat. And I do think that Flacco can do that to some degree. But yeah, with Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman has 7+ targets in 6 straight games. It's like that's like a real thorn in the side here. So I think all these guys should be on teams. And I think maybe Harold Fannin should be started and everybody else should just kind of be waiting to see how this thing shakes out, see if there's trades or I don't know, just the offense looks a little bit better. But yeah, all these guys are interesting, but not that interesting because they can't go anywhere.
They'll be more interesting when they add maybe a first-round quarterback in 2026, if there's one worthy of a first-round grade. All right, Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about some good offenses, because currently Dak Prescott leads the NFL in 10+ yard completions. And with Joe Burrow injured, I think it would be maybe fair to predict that Dak Prescott leads the NFL in passing yards this season. The 10+ yard completions is really bullish for George Pickens. Again, week to week, different matchups provoke different thoughts from us. The first one against the Eagles, not fun. Vic Fangio's defense. Second week against the Giants, yes, you're going to be able to take advantage of more downfield shots, and that's exactly what happened. And again, George Pickens in that, depending on your lineup, wide receiver 3 territory just makes a ton of sense for me, and he brings a different element to this offense.
Cowboys are 3rd in wide receiver usage through 2 weeks. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb's a big part of that, but that's going to be eventually helpful for George Pickens, who's the wide receiver 24 in usage through the 2 weeks. This defense is pathetic. Like, Wan'Dale Robinson coverage bust down the secondary. We're learning who these linebackers are on the Cowboys because they're so bad. And I just have to look up who the hell they are. That's not a good sign. So they're going to be in shootouts. Like you said, I think that the Chargers could be up there in most passing yards. I do think the Cowboys could easily be up there. So this thing is on pace. And then on the flip side of that Kyler Murray discussion, where under pressure, who's actually throwing a target, number one, it's a total outlier. It's 81% of his under pressure dropbacks, he's throwing a target, not throwing the ball away, not scrambling because he can't scramble anymore. He's throwing a target, and they're downfield shots, very valuable stuff. So they're going to be under a lot of pressure because their center is now out long-term. Their left tackle is really bad. And then Tyler Booker, I think, has been pretty bad too, their first-round guard. But Dak's been handling it as well as you can, and I do think that George Pickens, just at least kind of loosening up the coverage is probably really helpful for everybody involved.
And Jake Ferguson dominated the middle of the field area in week 2. If that wasn't CeeDee Lamb working that area and maybe he was pulling coverage when escaping the middle of the field, then Jake Ferguson was right behind him to catch a whole bunch of tightly contested catches.
We should take him serious, right? He's looking at the chart. He's the tight end 3 in usage. He's been a tight end 1.
It's a 3-person passing offense. We know the 2 wide receivers, and then it's a tight end. That is it. It's very easy to know of where the ball is going in the passing game. I also think we need to talk about the running back spot. Javonte Williams is the overall running back 2. And speaking of different conversations of each week, week 1, it was, hey, he got 2 short yardage touchdowns. He's not going to get a short yardage touchdown every single week. And then in week 2, he runs it for 35 yards and breaks multiple tackles and found the fountain of youth just a little bit. So I don't expect Javonte Williams to be, the number 2 running back the rest of the season, but he's at least producing at a Rico Dowdle-like level, which was a player that we loved last year. And there's a real chance that Javonte Williams finishes as a top 17, top 15 running back this season.
There's nothing fake about this. There's not somebody coming. There was another quote about Jaden Blue and why he's not out there on the field. Miles Sanders can't be trusted. And then Javonte Williams on tape looks powerful. And then in this last week, he even showed some explosiveness. So he's the goal line back playing 75% of the snaps. on a team that we like on offense. Like, what's fake about this? I don't know. Like I was not on Javonte Williams because I thought it was going to be a committee, and I'm going to be way wrong on this one. He's probably going to be one of the highest advance rate plays in Best Ball Mania. And this was like an ambiguous backfield on a good team, and he just looks healthy now. So I'm worried about the offensive line, but it doesn't matter if you're playing 75% of the snaps.
Yeah, Cooper Beebe, their center, is going to miss, I think, the next 6 to 8 weeks. So hopefully there isn't a bad trickle down from there. One final note, and this is from our buddy Brett Coleman, because multiple occasions the Cowboys just played for 60-plus yard field goals. This team's success rate in Brandon Aubrey on 60-plus yard field goals since 2023, Brandon Aubrey's at 71.4%. The rest of the league, everyone else in the world, is at 33.3%.
Yeah. The cheat code. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. And by the way, how teams are able to manipulate kicking balls now is going to only help him and only aid this. I think that Brian Schottenheimer said, his comfort range for Brandon Aubrey is 60 to 70 yards. Like, he's
hitting a 70-yarder this year. It's going to happen.
That is so ludicrous. Denver Broncos next. You guys did a fantastic job in the waiver show. Again, hopefully you all are checking that out and have hit that subscribe button. Troy Franklin is a really good conversation to have. I did want to bring up a note from our buddy Matt Harmon. This is just the 4th time since the start of last season a wide receiver opposite Courtland Sutton has played over 80% of the snaps. The other names included Josh Reynolds, Little Jordan Humphrey, and Devon Vele. So it's not like those 3 names evoke a lasting interpretation of what Troy Franklin could be in this offense. But at the same time, manufactured stuff, RPOs, 3 screens, off script plays with his college quarterback, those all hit in a big way in week 2.
Yeah. I think there's some obvious pros and cons here. A lot of this was manufactured, which I think could easily come and go. Like right now, he's the freaking Joker, but there's been 10 guys on this offense that they're trying to make the Joker, and that can just come and go. And I haven't seen him win consistently, like on real routes down the field or intermediate at all. But he's out there. Like he's playing more than Marvin Mims did last year. So I like him more than I liked Marvin Mims previously. And Marvin Mims was like, ended up being a pretty solid, like veteran best ball player. So I think he's like worth picking up. He's a young player. There's like some upside here. Like he's one of the guys that fell in the draft because he was so skinny and like he didn't like run so fast to make up for it. But there was like a lot of production from him. So there's some theoretical upside here. But I'm not like fully buying into it. So he's gonna be like a wait and see, being my wide receiver 40s this next week and see what happens. So worth picking up, but like not like fully buying into it.
Yeah, he went for 89 yards and a touchdown. Just to compare those snap rates among the non-Courtland Sutton wide receivers in week 1, Frank was at 59%, Mims 53%, Sherfield 34%, and Pat Bryant 5%. Then in week 2, that went to Franklin 83%, Mims 36%, Sherfield 38%, and then Pat Bryant at 24%, who actually got a target and a nice one early on. Now, the other part of this, Hayden, is that if Franklin's production went off, then Courtland Sutton's went down. I could easily see Sean Payton in the lab this week saying, oh, you all think I'm throwing the football to Troy Franklin again? No, it's just all being fed to Courtland Sutton this week.
Yeah, Courtland Sutton's like never been like a screen guy, didn't get the check and release stuff. He's like winning dig routes, post goes in breakers. So I don't think they're like necessarily competing one for one. Like if you're getting the Troy Franklin schemed up stuff, it's still going to end up being Courtland Sutton. So that was like a very rare dud from him. So I'm not going to like overreact to 1 week. I still like him.
Any feedback on the running back position that you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's one interesting note with J.K. Dobbins. He had 3 goal line opportunities inside the 5-yard line. They happened on 3 different drives. And on all 3 of those drives, R.J. Harvey was playing to some degree. So until proven otherwise, it's going to be J.K. Dobbins down there. And R.J. Harvey just needs to play more. And that also means like Tyler Bidet needs to play less. So Harvey's in the same situation that Travion Henderson's in, where he's the smaller guy, tons of upside still. There's no signs of life yet. Hold on to your bench. You can't start him right now, not even in the flex, and then hope that he earns more playing time and that hopefully J.K. Dobbins, who's done nothing wrong, same thing with Ramondre Stevenson, like starts to play worse and that these guys are too good to ignore.
Yeah, R.J. Harvey drafted as running back 20. He is currently the running back 43. Your note on Tyler Bidet just needing to not play, it would be a big deal for RJ Harvey. The snaps this week, Dobbins at 45%, RJ Harvey at 33%, and Tyler Bidet at 22%. If you don't mind, I would like to call attention to one of your tweets, though, because I do think that there is a difference. So you outlined that not every rookie running back is going to hit in year one, which is totally fair. Not all these guys are, but I was the RJ Harvey guy, so I really do want to bring this up. I do think there is a difference between RJ Harvey and guys that you mentioned like Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Will Shipley, and Ray Davis, because one, like RJ Harvey already has a bit of production this year. And then two, he was a second round pick. And three, those guys were behind like Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley and Devon Achane and James Cook and so on and so forth. And this is J.K. Dobbins, who's a really solid player, but we don't know how solid for very long.
For sure. I was just only tweeting that because on my timeline this morning, everybody was tweeting all the rookies that end up smashing down the stretch. And that's cherry picking, as was I cherry picking. And the reality is these guys are in the middle. I don't think that RJ Harvey was nearly as good as a prospect as some of the other breakout guys that happened later on the season. And I think that he's a better prospect than the guys that I was listing out. You can cherry pick these things both ways, but like the storyline that like he's a rookie, he's guaranteed to go crazy down the stretch, like also is not true. Some of these guys will bust. Some of these guys will end up paying off. And in the short term, I don't think that you guys can touch any of these guys for now. But I'm like still interested in these guys. It's just, it's not a guarantee that's going to work out just because other rookies do.
So my panic meter, I talked about with Ashton Genty, where top 15 season, I think at least we're getting from him from the running back spot. Omar Hampton, top 25, just because of good team, even if he is kind of a linear athlete and a really explosive one, because that's a good team too. Trevion Henderson, I actually have more faith that he is going to have a bigger season than RJ Harvey. And RJ Harvey, I would have the most concerns of because of the Tyler Bidet factor into this. Like, who's to say that Sean Payton, because we can't get into his brain, just thinks that Tyler Bidet is the best pass protecting or third down role running back on his team, and that just lasts for the entire season. We've seen that for, Jaleel McLaughlin, for example. So I think RJ Harvey, as he showcased in week one with the longest run that anyone has had in the Broncos over the last two seasons on the first game that he played, if he does get those opportunities, then to me, he's going to make really good on them because, the concern was he doesn't run between the tackles. He bounces it outside. Everything has been between the tackles for him. And I think he has looked quite good. I don't know how he gets more of those opportunities without this not being a three-person backfield anymore, because Bidet was not in the conversation for us heading into the season. And to me, even wasn't among all the beat writers. That was all J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey.
Yeah, for the most part. I will say Trayvon's still dealing with Antonio Gibson too, so it's pretty similar. I do agree with you, though. I think Trayvon's in a better spot than RJ Harvey. The reason being, Trevion Henderson is for sure really good at football. Like, I feel so good about that. I think RJ Harvey, his overall profile being a 24-year-old rookie from UCF is a little bit harder for me to envision it going correctly versus Trevion Henderson, who's an early declare from a huge school who's really productive early on. And I think is just like a better overall athlete. So we'll see where this one goes.
And don't get me wrong, even me advocating to draft RJ Harvey said it wasn't going to happen in week 2, and it might not happen in week 4, that this was more of, hey, if you're going to take him as running back 20, have an insurance policy, draft and I wasn't saying this, but the older running backs and Javonte Williams or someone of the sort a bit later on. I still believe, again, to me, every time he's getting an opportunity, he is showcasing really, really good skills, but we'll see what happens. Evan Ingram, just a total drop.
And what's the point? Like,
okay,
he's supposed to be Troy Franklin, right?
Evan Ingram, he could be Troy Franklin. Okay, let's go to Detroit Lions. Again, matchup so dependent in these first 2 games of the season. Week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. Now we know, sick, destructive, downhill, aggressive defense. Week 2, Chicago Bears made them look like one of the worst defenses in the league.
They are.
and now, especially without Jalen Johnson. Anyways, the Lions were in their bag from the running game to the passing department on top of it too.
Yeah, everything worked here. I did want to call attention to every Sunday morning. We talk about it on our live stream, and I also posted on Twitter. I would do the last second look at offensive line, defensive injuries, and find the ones that really matter. And like last week, it was official. Kyler Gordon was not going to play their slot corner against Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like those like last minute injury updates like really, really matter. So we don't have all of the information when we're doing our freaking running back rankings videos on Wednesdays. And then we're trying to get as much information on Thursday and Fridays. But sometimes you have to wait till Sunday to get the good stuff. And Amon-Ra absolutely cooked the backup slot corner. And the Bears defense is one to target. They're losing their best players everywhere right now. So yeah, the offense looks amazing. Like I don't even know what to say. Like everyone got home except Sam Laporta.
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting conversation when the Lions do face the Packers next and what's going to come from there. But again, very different. And then coming up, it's the Ravens this week on Monday Night Football, which is can't wait to watch that one. And then after that, it's the Browns and the Bengals and the Chiefs. Again, they're going to face a whole bunch of good opponents in the Buccaneers and the Vikings. But it's just cool to see that Mr. Morton can step in and keep a lot of the same identity from last season.
I got a tough question for you real quick. Jameson Williams, 13% target rate. At the same time, he is fast as shit and nearly housed a crossing route this last week. What the hell am I supposed to do with this? Because we know he's good. I think the offense is still going to be top 5-ish in points this year, top 10-ish. So that's enough, but it's not like lead the league in points. And even when they were leading the league in points, he's like the wide receiver 28. Where the hell am I supposed to put Jameson Williams in rankings?
I would say it's also the target rate can get skewed when you have 2 long ass touchdowns, because there's fewer plays and fewer passes on that drive. And he always has the ability to take that.
Yeah, he doesn't need a 25% target for sure.
Correct.
But 13% is pretty low. It's pretty low. I don't know what to do. He's like wide receiver 63 in usage, wide receiver 25 in production. That's not that surprising because it's JMO, but like he's a tough one for me to rank because he has to be an outlier, but he is.
Correct. I think that's a very easy way of putting it. Okay. Speaking of, Green Bay Packers are next. I think the only conversation here is about wide receiver. So Jane Reed came in the season with a Jones fracture, somehow played and was playing the most. Now he goes down with, I believe, a collarbone issue. And so he's going to be out for multiple weeks. What happens to the wide receiver group between Matthew Golden, who had a goose egg despite being open and having legit chances down the field? It was just this close. And then no one wants to hear it, but a player who has been playing way more and looking way better than last season is the post-hype man himself in Dontavian Wicks.
So what happened after Reed went down with injuries? Routes were Romeo Doubs 78%, Matthew Golden 73%, Dontavian Wicks 55%. Wicks was the guy going into the slot the most. I do think that Matthew Golden can also do that. They have like extended time to figure out this rotation. They're not going to play 100% of the snaps. So they like Malik Heaths and a second tight end, and they do weird things, but it's consolidated a bunch right now. So the Matthew Golden stuff I think is the most interesting because right now, usage wise, it's like not even close. He's averaging 3.9 expected points. Now that could have been 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if that happened and like he didn't really do much wrong there, maybe could have flattened out a little bit on that post. If that was the case, he'd be on the cover of the thumbnails and stuff.
Correct.
So it's like, that's kind of what we're signing up for. I think that hopefully he gets more of the manufacturer stuff. We haven't seen like screens, motions, like cheat motion stuff, which I think they can do with Matthew Golden. So I'm intrigued, but I'm a little nervous as like better and best ball-y. So I would like to see like another week of Matthew Golden, like getting some free stuff before like he's my wide receiver 33.
So in an ideal world, we all believed that, hey, they finally spent a first-round pick on a rookie. That means he's going to run 80% of routes. That has not happened through 2 weeks. Now it kind of has to happen, or else like this is not a red flag, but what is the rest of the season going to be? Like when Jaden Reed goes down, you would think that Matthew Golden is going to be the motion man on top of Wicks doing some of that, see more time in the slot, see more of these crossing routes and all that stuff. I still think he's a buy low at this point because he's done absolutely nothing and it can only go up. And if you can flip, and I don't know if something can happen in any league out there is what I've learned in these trade shows. If you can flip like Dylan Sampson for Matthew Golden, I would easily do that 100 times out of 100.
Oh yeah. Yeah, completely agree. He's I think a very good player, and this offense is very good. If you guys have not been paying attention.
Question, let's ramp that up a little bit. Would you flip DJ Moore for Matthew Golden?
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave it there. We'll do more on the trade show this week with Faraz, and then wide receiver rankings also on Friday of this week. Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts have had 16 drives this season. 14 of them have ended in a score. They've had 2 turnover on downs and then 0 punts. Yeah. One of my statements this summer is no one has benefited more from not playing football than Daniel Jones. What I really meant to say is no one has improved more by not playing football than Daniel Jones. This offense is just really fun to watch.
I think your statement was true. And then you can also just add that no one has, gone up in stock since playing football as well. So like both things could be true. You weren't saying that it's not going to happen.
Of course not. Of course not.
It looks amazing, man. Like it feels like obviously they're never not going to punt the football. Like that's insane. But a lot of this feels sustainable. Like the offensive line is holding up, and Shane Steichen made the playoffs with freaking Gardner Minshew. I think that Daniel Jones more talented than Gardner Minshew is. And that was before Tyler Warren and like Josh Downs' breakout too. And with Jonathan Taylor was like dealing with ankle sprains. And right now, despite consensus rankings have Jonathan Taylor as RB13 last week, he doesn't come off the field. And he's breaking the second most tackles in the league and looks like an amazing player. So it's just such a good situation for everybody. So Jacob on the waiver wire show called Daniel Jones a top 12 quarterback rest of season.
Wow.
I don't
Colts
think
fan.
that. Yeah, but somebody that was also rooting for Anthony Richardson at the same time. So, like, I think it's a fair enough take. Like, he's going to be involved to some capacity in the red area with his legs. We've seen him sprint and then stumble in the open field. He can like pick up some rushing yards, but really, like everyone in the offense, like, is in a really good spot. Like, it all gels together. Like, honestly, like aside from the huge whiff with Anthony Richardson, Chris Ballard has like found the nice collection on offense of like who wins in different roles.
And when you watch just offenses across the league, you see quarterbacks getting to their drop and, standing there and patting the football and no one's open and these concepts not gelling together. And then they just like throw it to no one. Daniel Jones knows exactly where to throw the football. He knows who's going to be open. And then the Shane Steichen invention and creativity here is just magnificent. I mean, they had one play where Tyler Warren shifted on over to fullback. Then they had 2 push off coverage routes to push corners and safeties, released him in between the guard and the center to get over top of the Broncos linebackers. Just like an easy pitch, lofted catch over to him. And that's a gain of like 27 yards. Just created by absolutely no one. One guy had to run straight. The other guys just had to run sprints. And the quarterback just had to loft it over a 6-foot guy at the linebacker spot. And it's just a chunk gain of 27. And on top of this, we know that Josh Allen is a phenom inside of the 5-yard line. He already has 5 carries and has scored 2 touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. Next up, Daniel Jones has 4 carries inside the 5-yard line for 3 scores. So we're also getting like the rushing component. While it might not be a ton of yards, it is short yardage touchdowns. Now those could easily dry up. Like you just have to be inside the 5, inside the 3, inside the 1, and not give it to Jonathan Taylor. But it's really working right now. That's for sure.
This feels like largely sustainable. Like not to this level, but like, is this a playoff caliber team and a watchable team? I think it is. So yeah, we'll figure it out. And that was, by the way, against the freaking Broncos. So like, I know Michael Pittman had a down week. I still really like him. I think that Josh Downs is going to be hard to predict because he's still not out there in 3 wide receiver sets, but he's going to jump out for a big week. And he should have a touchdown. Daniel Jones did miss him in this one. So yeah, everything's good. Jonathan Taylor real quick. How, like, if we're having drafts today, is he 6th overall pick? Is he 5th? Like, I mean, how high is it? Like, it's really high up there. Why not?
At least flip him with Ashton Genty, where he was going as the 9th overall pick. It's that simple. And then Tyler Warren, very comfortable that I ranked him as the highest pass catcher on this team, like not even including the tight end tax, because I mean, he lined up one-on-one with Patrick Surtain, used his forearm to push off and went in an outbreaker for 12 yards. And the pass was thrown like at perfect timing. So Tyler Warren is a constant on this team in terms of manufacturing as a top 12 tight end and a top 5 tight end, I should say, the rest of the way.
Yeah, if you listen to people talk about Tyler Warren, they talk about him like one of the guys, like one of like the players. They're like, this guy is totally different. So I always find that interesting.
Okay, we go from one of the most fun offenses in the Colts to one of the least fun. This is the Kansas City Chiefs. They are next. They are just not a fun team. They really aren't, Hayden. They are not a fun team to watch at this moment. Like the fun part last year was obviously Rashee Rice for the first 2 games. Then it was Xavier Worthy learning how and being incorporated in this offense. And then Patrick Mahomes just being total magic. Now, without both Rice, and maybe Worthy comes back, but if he takes one hit, who knows if he's going to spontaneously combust. Then it's just Patrick Mahomes trying to work his magic while also still being pressured. Like, again, not an enjoyable watch here to me.
No, and they're right now at 49% neutral pass rate through the first 2 weeks, and like the ground game has been pathetic. So yeah, they also feel like a team that has just like some identity issues right now and what exactly they're trying to be. And I think the offensive line will play better as they kind of gel together. They got a new guard and tackle, and the rest of the offensive line is pretty good. So hopefully that kind of gels out. But until we know about, Xavier Worthy, the guys that we have to mention for fantasy right now, Mahomes is scrambling at career high rates. He's a top 10 quarterback, even with all this drama. Kelsey and then Marquise Brown. You don't play the Eagles every single week, so hopefully that looks a little bit better. But Marquise Brown only had 5 expected points after being wide receiver 1 in usage the week prior. So he's like a flex guy if you're desperate, but there's no floor there. Kelsey's interesting to me because his hand-eye coordination seems to be diminishing, right? But I did watch him run right by Cooper DeJean in man coverage, and I've seen him get wide ass open with a little bit more speed on some other reps. So he's difficult for me because he's like running away from a couple guys more so far this year than he did last year, but he's also dropping more passes. So I don't know what to do with that, but I just found it interesting that he's at least running fast. I don't know.
Okay. This might be a bit of a jump, but if the top 5 tight ends are in whatever order, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, and then Jawan Johnson, if you want to throw him as tight end 5, we'll talk about here in a moment. The tight end 6 and beyond right now is just like, make your pick.
I like Kelsey the best.
Pick.
I like Kelsey the best for now.
So that's your tight end 6 is Travis Kelsey ahead of like Sam Laporta, for example.
Yeah, for now. Like until Rashee Rice gets back, I think that's fine. He's not the same player. He's also like not completely disintegrated. Like man on man, just like against Cooper DeJean, just runs right by him. Like that's got to mean something. That's one of the best slot corners. It's not even a linebacker.
My concern is as soon as Rashee Rice comes back, this is once again his offense, and it's just going to flow through him, and it's going to be more fun and more production, and we are going to rank him extremely high. That can be wrong, but that's just my read. They really need Rashee Rice back in this team.
Unfortunately, we're 4 games away from that happening still. So it's we got a lot of stuff to figure out until then.
Los Angeles Rams. So a major part of the conversation for us about this running back room this summer is we were not anti Kyren Williams heading into 2024. We were slightly concerned about his ADP in 2025 for the reason that popped up here in week 2, that he got about 60 to 65% of the work for a runner who is a volume sponge and needs basically every short yardage running back touchdown that this team has. The difference in this one is that he didn't get the 4th quarter touchdown. That one went to Blake Corum. And why I'm pointing this out is that touchdown alone would have changed Kyren Williams from the running back 30 to the running back 15 on the week, which is exactly where he has been on a consistent basis over and over. And then Sean McVay post-game was asked, well, is this how you want to use these running backs? And Hayden, he said, yes, he wants it to be 65 for Kyren Williams. He wants to be 35 for Blake Corum. And he's putting that into practice already.
Yeah, he's just been an inefficient player on the massive volumes. So they want to make it more 50-50 and hopefully, or 70-30 and see if that helps out the efficiency stuff. The offensive line's having some issues for the Rams. Obviously McVay with Stafford is like really mitigating that, but there's some injuries up front. So that's not helping the situation. But yeah, I think Kyren Williams is definitely an RB2 and not an RB1 for now. And we'll see where it goes from here. I think Blake Corum's like made the most out of all of his carries in the preseason and then so far this year as well. So I think Blake Corum's like a guy you want to pick up. Like you can't start him yet, but this thing could flip if things go completely right, or if Kyren Williams goes down. I think Blake Corum will be 70% and then Jarquez Hunter would be 30%. And at that point you have a smash.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to outright flip unless Kyren Williams gets injured. I think Blake Corum is playing really well though. And my biggest thing is, look, we got 1 short yardage touchdown in week 2 given to Blake Corum. If that happens like 3, 4, 5 times the rest of the season, that is major damage to the previous Kyren Williams production that was out there on the field. So the other part of this is, again, after week 1, we just get to week 2 and Devontae Adams totally makes good on our hope and expectation of him as a player, and the connection between he and Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford is just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, wide receiver won in expected points last week. He got like 1 million, red zone targets in this last one, and finally converted on one. Yeah, the Rams right now are 4th in neutral pass rate. They're 4th in wide receiver expected points collectively. Puka is now at 3 yards per route run over his entire career, which is insane. But Devontae Adams is still very good at football too, and you can watch the Matthew Stafford stuff. Sosa from Underdog NFL News, he posted it, like the lead pass where he was throwing it from the side. I mean, it was insane stuff. So Matthew Stafford is still right now making incredible plays. Hopefully it lasts, because this team's very fun when everything's rocking and rolling. And they need they need McVay, Puka, another receiver, which is currently Adams, in Stafford. If they have those 4 guys upright, they are a dangerous football team. And right now that's the case.
New Orleans Saints. No one is watching the Saints, including myself, on Sundays, but then went back this morning on a Tuesday and watched them. They're pretty fun. They might be the feisty, bad, fun team of 2025 for numerous reasons. 1, they run a ton of plays. 2, Kellen Moore can really dial and script some stuff up. And then 3, Spencer Rattler is like really high variance roller coaster in a fun way, in that he'll make some big time throws. Had a beautiful ball to Rashid Shaheed down the left sideline, through some other great passes to Juwan Johnson, and then does just enough to throw it into tightly covered players and then make some other bad plays and take some other sacks. And on top of that, he's very mobile. But again, I'm just glad that, I'm not going to say this team is bad, but they're going to be below average. And too often below average teams are not enjoyable to watch, and this one is.
Yeah, they got some good skill players, and I think Kellen Moore is doesn't do anything super fancy, but the playbook always seems like it's in control with him. And yeah, I think that Chris Olave is one of the best buy lows there is right now. 29% targets. He's the wide receiver 6 in expected points. It has not meant anything through 2 weeks, but we know he's a good player. So I would be buying low on Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed, like you said, he had that pick play touchdown, which was a nice call, and he's super fast, but also that man coverage win down the field was a fantastic play for him. He's just a good football player, and he's wide receiver 31 in usage right now, so that's not nothing, because the team is super fast paced and they're running a lot of plays. I don't think the defense is very good too, so they're going to be in some catch up mode, and I think the story for them has just been Juwan Johnson, 25% target share. He's a tight end 1 in expected points. He's a tight end 3 in real points. There's a 3rd and 6 play manufactured to him. They'll get him on an occasional screen. There's actual dialing up plays for him out in the flats too. So you're going to get some of the PPR scam stuff in fourth quarters, but you're also getting legitimate first read targets. And this guy used to play wide receiver, and now he's just a tight end. So, and he's super handsome. So I'm a big fan of Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, I know the Juwan Johnson stuff might sound crazy because it's his 6th year in the NFL, and so often guys don't break out that late. But go and watch this. I posted a clip on Twitter. He is a focal point, a critical piece of this offense. It's design stuff. They're doing 3x1s as him as the only pass catcher on one side of the field. Like you said, screens and rubs and all that type of stuff, and especially in the red zone. He's even dropping some passes, and they're totally fine with that and just going right back to him. So it's these 2 wide receivers, and it's Juwan Johnson, the passing game. Totally with you on the Chris Olave stuff. He routed up the San Francisco corner twice. He should have had a touchdown on the first drive by kind of doing this outside to inside move after motioning prior to the snap, and Spencer Rattler just threw it behind him where he missed it. And then another time he spun a guy down and put him on the dirt. So Chris Olave looks exceptional out there. And since his production hasn't matched it, go and get him on your roster, because this team is not going to stop throwing the football. This is what they're doing. Yeah,
they were literally showing Indiana Pacers footage because they played with so much pace. So that's pretty crazy. Alvin Kamara, also a big bounce back spot, 19 expected points in week 2, which is elite numbers for him. And that was not the case in week 1. So that's maybe a little bit more volatile, but that was good to see.
New York Giants. Let's talk about them. We did a whole bunch on Sunday night, but I know that you were able to then go back and watch it ahead of the waiver show and ahead of this stats versus film. Do you want to start with the passing game or the running game?
Let's do the pass game. Malik Neighbors could finish as the wide receiver 1. If he stays healthy with Russ/Dart, he's so damn good, and they're 3rd in neutral pass rate. So enough said there. Wan'Dale Robinson is the wide receiver 18 in expected points. He's now a top 10 wide receiver because of this last monster game. I've never seen him run downfield routes, and that's what was happening in this one. It's a coincidence that his quarterback is good at throwing downfield routes. Now, the two big plays, including the touchdown, were coverage bust. You can't expect that. And I think the Cowboys defense is borderline pathetic right now. So it's not that sustainable, but Wan'Dale is like on the spreadsheets, gets targets. And now if those targets are now happening 10 yards downfield instead of 3 yards downfield, it's a little bit more interesting. So everybody should go pick him up if he's available, see what's happening here.
Would you trade him for Chris Olave?
Oh, yes.
Well, again, I know that this seems shocking to us.
I know.
Many people out there would just look at fantasy points and say, oh man, Wan'Dale Robinson has way more than Chris Olave, and wouldn't want to make that deal. And I'm telling you, go make that deal.
I've taken some shots at Mr. Robinson, but the circumstances have changed in the things I was taking shots at, the Mickey Mouse routes. He's not running Mickey Mouse routes anymore. He's running big quarters beaters, big cover 3 beaters down the field. Like, that's a totally different ball game here. So I'm leaving the light on for Wan'Dale Robinson.
He already has 14 targets on 3rd and 4th down so far this season. So 3rd and 4th and Wan'Dale has been a thing up in New York. Typically it's what you mean with, if you need 4 yards, he's getting you 5 yards. If you need 2 yards, he's getting you 3 yards, all that type of stuff. That has changed. That is definitely now more down the field. Okay, let's talk about this running back stuff, because Tyrone Tracy owned the backfield in week 1. I think he questioned some play calling in between there. I'm not sure if that played a part here. Yes. And then Cam Scatterboo immediately came in about the 2nd or 3rd series and then just dominated a lot of the work from there.
Yeah. The first quarter, you can see all 3 played. It was mostly Tyrone Tracy, but after halftime, it was mostly Cam Scatterboo. He had the goal line touchdown. I like Tyrone Tracy. I appreciate him, the prospect. Great story, great rookie season, still an NFL contributor. What a smash pick for where he was as a prospect and draft pick. He does not run the ball like Cam Scatterboo. Cam Scatterboo is a freaking monster out there and will run right through you. And as long as he stays healthy, he's exciting, man. And he can catch passes. This guy was 99th percentile as a prospect in receiving yards versus all the other drafted running backs since 2000. So, and then he's going to be the goal line back. So, they cannot run the ball effectively in the red area, and that's why Tyrone Tracy was taking shots at the play callers. But the reality is, the offensive line is still really bad. They need Andrew Thomas back, but that is coming. And I think Cam Scatterboo was sometimes labeled as a fullback. Dude is just might be a good running back, like he was at Arizona State. He single-handedly almost won a college football playoff game by himself. There's no other guys that went to the combine. It was just him. He almost freaking beat Texas.
Yeah. Scatterboo was an electric prospect. So much fun to watch. Him. And a legit pass catcher. Pass protection needed some work. He was Goldberg spearing people. But man, what a really fun prospect. There's questions I've gotten of Bashal Tutin versus Cam Scatterboo the rest of the way. Cam Scatterboo is going to play more snaps immediately. At the same time, I could also see the Jaguars rushing attack being flat out better than the Giants for a large portion of this season. Yeah. And so I might lean towards Bashal Tutin there, but I totally understand if someone else wants to take Scatterboo.
I think there's a chance that Cam Scatterboo will be a top 20 guy from this point moving forward. That's within the range just because he has the body type and the production of somebody that's a fantasy asset, even if he's not creating a bunch of explosive runs. But I thought that the label of fullback stuff was not giving enough credit for where his short area burst is. It's insane. He's in an absolute New York. If they like Tommy DeVito, they are going to absolutely love Scatterboo and Dart together. This is going to be fun.
This might be a ridiculous narrative, but I do think Tracy not even getting the start here and Devin Singletary getting the start and then Cam Scatterboo coming in right after that is a message to him about hey, don't say that stuff to the public.
You're Tyrone Tracy after all. Be happy you're here.
All right, let's talk about the Jets. It was terrible in week 2. We covered that. Justin Fields is dealing with concussion-like symptoms. Their backup quarterback is Tyrod Taylor, which actually might help the passing game because there were definitely some wayward passes in the direction of Garrett Wilson here. Just 2, I think, were completed in the entire first half. But, Breece Hall goes from 19 carries for 107 yards to 10 for 29. And like I said, the Bills defense was just rifling through blocks and totally swallowing them up at the first and second level. Is there anything else to add here with the Jets? Again, this is just who this team is in terms of high varianceness, I think.
Yeah, disappointing that they fell that flat. I mean, 2 completions at halftime is pathetic. They are dead last in neutral pass rate right now. They're running the ball 33% of the time, and they're probably going to be chasing some. So it's going to be super volatile. You know what you signed up for with this. Like Garrett Wilson, hey, 29% targets. Also, let me pull this up. They are 31st in wide receiver usage. So he better get 29% of the looks because he has to. So through 2 weeks, it's been up and down. Breece Hall's the running back 24 in usage. Garrett Wilson is the wide receiver 29 in usage. I think that's like fair enough starting points for these guys. 1 week, you're going to look like a genius. 1 week, you're going to look like the clown of the draft. So it's the Jets right now. I don't know.
Moving on. Philadelphia Eagles. I'll argue with this. Also not a really enjoyable offense to watch right now. They are dead last in wide receiver usage, according to your charts. So, Hayden, we think that's going to get better for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And hopefully 13.3 points among wide receivers being shared on this team doesn't last for 17 weeks. But how much will it get better?
Yeah, I don't have this in front of me, but I'm pretty sure they were dead last or second to last year. So like it's not as bad as it has been these first 2 weeks, but it was this last year, like when Saquon Barkley is healthy and they're doing the tush push stuff and their defense is good. And like part of it is Jalen Hurts he's turning down some throws because he knows if he doesn't turn the ball over, they win the football game. So I think like a lot of these where he's like checking the ball down or just throwing the ball away, it's like, well, the defense is good. We're going to score enough points. We're going to keep it moving. It sounds like an excuse, but I do think that's like part of what's happening here.
Yeah.
With AJ Brown, he's no longer getting screens and RPOs because there's no need to do that when you can just run the ball as well as the Eagles. So like every single year since he's been in Philadelphia, he's getting fewer and fewer of them, and he hasn't gotten a single one of those. This last week, he was actually getting man coverage looks, but they're just like slant, the more conservative stuff. So he either has to do one of two things. Like these slants have to be yards after the catch touchdowns, which he's capable of doing, but hard to do. Or when he finally gets the downfield look, like a press man coverage look, these got to be go balls down the field and those got to be completed. Those will happen, but you're not getting any of the gimme stuff. And sometimes they're up by 2 touchdowns in the second quarter and it's a wrap. So I don't know what to do with these guys in rankings, but it's not looking pretty.
So let's help the people. And if you just want to say pass, I don't know, I want to think about it more, that's totally fair. I don't want you to put you in an awkward position. With A.J. Brown, would you look to trade him?
Yes, but it just depends on what you're getting. I think I would draft him in the 3rd, 4th round.
Okay. If we were redrafting today. Okay. Then would you trade A.J. Brown straight up for Courtland Sutton right now?
No. But
okay.
Same tier.
Okay. I just wanted to set a bar there. Mike Evans straight up.
Also around 3-4 turn. Right. Like, yeah, all those guys, Deebo Samuel, I think it's all pretty similar there. It's if he was available at 37th overall, would you take him if you were on the clock right now?
The frustrating part about the Eagles, and this is from, again, Jared Smollett, the Eagles have averaged 26 pass attempts per game last season, becoming just the 8th team over the last 10 seasons to throw for fewer than 27 passes per game. So far this year, they're throwing 22.5 per game.
They're good.
And then from Mike Renner, Jalen Hurts has just 2 completions of 10 plus air yards in 2 games. That's the same amount as Tyrod Taylor, which is 34th in the NFL. I mean, it's just like you equal the amount of catches of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown with the amount of tush pushes you run in a game. It's just like not enjoyable. I understand it's all about winning games. Totally. I also like to, in an offense that has Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley, and a sick offensive line, be a normal passing attack. Attack things. Be creative. Have some long, explosive plays. This whole thing that we do, fantasy football, watching football, is about entertainment and enjoying a sport. Cool. Super Bowl. Great.
Yeah, cool Super Bowl, man.
Also, I like my Sundays. I like to go back on Mondays and watch a quarterback who actually plays quarterback and throws the football down the field. Okay. They just aren't doing that right now. It sucks to watch.
You're not wrong. You're not going to convince them.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Jaylen Warren right now is a weekly starter. We theorized heading into the season that, hey, he's really good in pass protection. He's next to Aaron Rodgers. Could this potentially mean that he will earn the starting running back job on this team, even if Arthur Smith has never given it to him and he coached him last season? The answer is yes. The other part of that, he's competing with Kenny Gainwell, and there is no end in sight with Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, Caleb's not playing the kick return role. We learned that. With Jalen Warren, it was all about he's probably going to play passing downs. He could be effective in that role. We knew that. How much of the early down stuff is he going to contribute? And the answer to that has been like plenty right now. They're not using Caleb at all. So he's the top 15 running back in usage and production so far. He deserves top 25 love until proven otherwise. It's not my favorite offense to watch certainly right now, but that was one of the best plays we'll see the entire season from the position. So until like Caleb is like on the field, like nothing changes. So like once that happens, we'll get back to you guys. But for right now, he's a RB2.
In the reference tweet before, when you discussed all those guys like Blake Corum and Trey Benson and Marshawn Lloyd and that, I think I would place Caleb Johnson in that group right now. Like he is not earning touches to open the season, and those guys didn't either. And then I don't know what he is going to do to start earning touches unless an injury happens, because the guy in front of him is playing really good football right now, and Caleb Johnson already made a mental error to lose this game.
Yeah, I would say we can just get Kenneth Gainwell out of there. That would be nice. Doesn't it make more sense that, Caleb is getting some early down touches and then Jalen Warren's getting the most touches and all the passing down stuff, and then like Kenny Gainwell, like thanks for your service. Maybe Kenny Gainwell, who's like, he can be the kick returner. It's like, let's just flip these guys' roles. I don't know. So I think in really shallow leagues, Caleb Johnson, you can drop him. I would give him another couple weeks here. But it's not like, obviously it's not going well.
Right. To me, the panic of like Trevion and RJ Harvey is different than the real panic of Caleb Johnson, who was selected as running back 26. Like he is not even touching the field at this point.
Yeah.
So that is a full 10 on the panic meter for me.
Yeah. He was also, drafted in the third round in the draft. So there's sliding scales to that.
Right.
Like more likely a third round. It's like more likely a third round guy is going to bust than the second rounder. Like right. To your point.
San Francisco 49ers are next. Mac Jones looked decisive out there. We all wondered, what could a Mac Jones led 49ers offense look like? It was really good. And who also looked good was Juwan Jennings, back from injury, winning after the catch, just being fast enough than the slowest defensive back out there on the field. I do think he's already day-to-day with some other like ankle ailment on top of this, but I feel like that's just what we're going to have to deal with Juwan Jennings in 2025.
Yeah, man. I think just to start with Mac, there was really no differences in like the play calling from Shanahan, like a couple more RPOs, which was nice to see. But you're getting the same like big out routes and stuff that you would get with Brock Purdy. Mac Jones misses a couple more of those. You're not going to get the extended plays with Brock. So it's a worse offense, but structurally looked the same. And Mac was making a lot of anticipation throws, which is impressive for a guy that's like brand new to the team. So that was all good. Ricky Pearsall, you're going to get some nice plays from him, but he doesn't get the manufactured touches. Like that's like one kind of nitpicky thing.
Well,
like
CMC
right now,
does.
Yes. I mean, and those should continue. Like line him up in the slot and just let him win as a receiver at this point. So Ricky Pearsall is like earning every single look that he's getting, and he's still good and he's still hanging in there as wide receiver 30 on wide receiver 28 usage. Like all that's rock solid. Juwan Jennings had more expected points this last week, more targets, etc. He gets not like manufactured touches, but like a free little zone catch is more likely to go to Juwan Jennings than Ricky Pearsall. So that's kind of nitpicking the situation. But I thought like it was fun to see Mac Jones like sitting there with anticipation, just like rip big out routes. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already seeing people panic or get frustrated with Ricky Pearsall. I question why. Like he was wide receiver 19 in week 1. He's wide receiver 30 on the season on Underdog, where he's being drafted higher than anywhere else. He's selected as wide receiver 33. Like, why are we freaking out? Yeah. Like,
this is totally fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
And the 49ers schedule, they're already dealing with a ton of injuries, but it also still is most likely the easiest one. And then they get Brock Purdy back, hopefully in 2 weeks. And if that's not the case, then, Mac Jones is the quarterback here. Sure, Ricky Pearsall isn't going to get like 9 targets a game potentially, or 9 catches a game, I should say. But like 4 to 5 in an offense that's like really good and scores points too. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. he's a flex guy at worst right now, and he can still break out from here. He's still a young player. So I'm with you. I think it's fine. It's not ideal. It's not panic. It's totally fine right now. And same thing with Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, and then Chris McCaffrey is going to Saudi Arabia this summer to play flag football.
I wonder how much these guys are getting paid. I was listening to Tim Dillon said he's making $400,000 going over there for the comedy festival. Yeah. Tom Brady much bigger than Tim Dillon, so I'm guessing that these are millions and millions.
And Kyle Shanahan's coaching it. I mean, it's kind of insane. I get it, money talks, but a guy that was limited out heading into week 1 in practice is now doing flag football just for extra money when we have this major calf thing that could always be looming and pop up whenever. Again, we love Chris McCaffrey. Can still finish as the running back 1 overall this season. The wide receiver legit stuff that he was running in this game as like an isolated pass catcher was just so sick. And let's ride this for as long as we can go. But it's kind of silly. Just kind of silly.
Yes. Saudi Arabia flag football. It's a true what could go wrong situation.
But if you want to pay me, I'll go. That's for sure. All right. 2 more teams. Here are the Tennessee Titans. So it's very cool when your running back gets 20 touches. It's not cool when that can only equal 90 yards and no touchdowns. But as you eloquently put it on Sunday night, in the next 2 weeks, hopefully those 20 touches equal 1 or 2 touchdowns, which it easily could. And then you still have the high variance-ness of this passing game, which is also enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I think Cam Ward's hanging in there, making some difficult throws in less than ideal situations. Hopefully they get Latham back. Forget exactly what his injury was. I know he missed this last game, but hopefully that irons out. And yeah, Pollard's the RB27 on RB25 usage without scoring a touchdown. That's a touchdown. Now he's the RB12 on a week. So rank him a little bit ahead of where he's been scoring. I think it's totally fine. Alec Ayumanor, it's tough. Like he's out there for a bunch of snaps, very impressive one-handed grabs, not a lot of separation. You get a scramble drill touchdown. Like it seems to me like a better and best ball guy. And I think with Calvin Ridley, the headliner here, 23% targets is less than I would like, but I think those are going to be eventually decent targets, and you're not going to face Surtain and then this Rams pass rush every single week. So I'm just guessing that'll get a little bit better. So he's like a moderate buy low versus where you drafted him. So
next few games here for the Titans, who again opened with 2 ridiculous defenses, like you outlined with the Broncos and the Rams. It's the Colts, the Texans, the Cardinals, and the Raiders are the next 4. So hopefully some like close games, some possible wins, all that type of stuff here for Cam Ward and the passing attack. I do feel like you and I probably least of any other show are going to talk about Alec Ayumanor though. Let's finalize things with the Washington Commanders. There is big injury news here. On another day, we might have started with it if not all of these running back or quarterback injuries happened. This one was a running back injury. We know Austin Eckler out for the year. And so this changes from a 3-person backfield to most likely a 2-person backfield. And since this happened last Thursday, Hayden, Dan Quinn and company have already been asked a ton of questions about Bill Krosky-Merritt. And every single time they seem to be incredibly optimistic, throw a lot of praise on him that he is going to be their lead back. I think the difference in that is, does that mean it's going to be 75% or 55%, with the other 2 guys being Jeremy McNichols, who did step in as a fill-in for Eckler last year, and then Chris Rodriguez will most likely be back to active on the roster on game days now.
Yeah, I think this is a slight win for Bill, like no questions about it.
I think it's a huge win.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Right now the Commanders through 2 weeks, they're 27th in running back usage. And part of that is because Deebo Samuel gets involved, Jaden Daniels gets involved. They've also had some tough matchups, obviously, too. So I think the pie that they're splitting up is a little bit less than you'd think versus like, wow, this is a really good team. So that's like one thing to note. McNichols could do a poor man's version of Austin Eckler stuff. And then Chris Rodriguez will play a couple snaps. So he's going to get the ball more. He also has to get the ball more because Bill is RB44 in usage. So could he be the RB25 in usage? I think that's possible. Do I see him being the RB12 in usage? I think that's a stretch versus like how this offense runs. But I really like this tape, and he's going to get the ball more. So like this is definitely a win for him. But we'll see how high we can go up with him.
This is the best run out you could have, though, if you drafted him.
Oh,
an injury to who was the lead ball carrier, and then you get more and more and more of the work. And, it's aided, and he made the play with that long touchdown run in week 1. And then you go up against the Packers defense in week 2, and that stuffs you for 1.7 points. But his tape looks great. And we'll see. I think it is going to be closer to that like 55% mark. And these other guys are still going to fill in because, again, they like the room they keep talking about. And it's not as simple as good offense means lead ball carrier, and that means touchdowns. But I do think Bill is easy flex play moving forward, and most likely easy in running back 2 conversations.
Yep. I see where this one's trending towards. I agree.
And then let's talk about Deebo Samuel. I mean, 21st in expected fantasy points and 8th overall scorer. Knock on wood. Okay. He looks sick. I don't know how this slows down.
25% targets, and then you get the rushing bonus. And I think that without Austin Eckler, I think that helps Deebo Samuel too. The eye test, he's passing there. So should I keep ranking Deebo Samuel above Terry McLaurin? I think so. Terry McLaurin's gonna have some huge weeks though. Like barely missed on a long touchdown, had a lot more targets this last game. So there's signs of life here, not writing him off. But Deebo just gets a lot more of the easy stuff. And as long as he doesn't pick up another injury, he's looking like one of the guys that you wanted in the mid rounds.
Were we dumb to not include Zach Ertz in that top 5 tight end conversation? He is tight end 2 on the year right now. I think he has scored a touchdown in like 10 of his last 13 games that he's played, something absurd like that.
Wild. Yeah, he had that like nice angle route against man coverage in week 1, scored another one in week 2. So yeah, he's in the Kelsey zone, tight end 2, tight end 12. It's all the same, all these guys would be projected for 40 yards in the pick and lobby. Who's scoring the touchdown this week? There's more likely chance that it's, the teams that can actually score touchdowns. So we're back where he's been like in this tight end 10 range for months.
All right. That does it. Wednesday of this week, running back rankings here on the channel. Thursday, trade show with myself and Faraz around 2:30 or 3, launching that day ahead of Thursday Night Football. And then Friday and Saturday, wide receiver, then quarterback and tight end rankings. And we'll be sure to fit in the sicko defenses on top of that. Again, thank you all for watching and hitting that subscribe button and telling a friend and supporting Underdog. I didn't mention it in this show. We will much more during the rankings and the tiers. Use promo code The Show and sign up and play over on UD right now. They allow us to do the show, so you should support them if you like our content. All right, everyone. Thanks to Mosho and Weaves behind the scenes. Up the Villa, even though they lost during the show. We'll talk to y'all soon. See you.